Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 9th, 2022 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Hearings before this commission are quasi-judicial in nature. This is a design review process to determine whether a proposed project is congruous with the special character of the historic district or landmark in which it is located. Decisions of the Commission are based on the record of these proceedings, the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks, and the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Evidence submitted to the Commission for review will become part of the record. Appeal of a Commission decision must be submitted to the Wilmington Board of Adjustment within 30 days of the date of the Commission's action. Further appeal must be submitted to Superior Court. Evidence pertaining to an agenda item must be presented during the evidentiary portion of that item. Individuals who wish to address the Commission will be sworn in as witnesses to present material and substantial evidence. The Chair will recognize each witness who wishes to address the Commission during the evidentiary portion. In order to ensure that witness evidence is properly recorded, each individual should come to the podium and clearly state their name and address before addressing the Commission. As a brief reminder, members of the Commission are appointed by and serve at the pleasure of City Council. Our charge is with respect to the protection and preservation of properties located within the city's designated historic districts. The Commission is held to the requirements of the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks, as well as the applicable North Carolina state law. We are to determine whether exterior changes to a building are congruous with the special character of the city's historic districts. It is important that the Commission deliberate the merits of each request in a manner that provides a record of the basis for our decisions. Please remember that our deliberation should be centered on how a project meets the Wilmington Design Standards and whether the changes are congruous. Commissioners, if you have received or been made aware of any information outside this evidentiary hearing related to any agenda item before the Commission, please recuse yourself from that agenda item. Before the meeting begins, please ensure that all cell phones are in silent mode or turned off. Tonight we have a very long agenda, and we will be adhering to the Robert's Rules of Order and ask that public comments are limited to 10 minutes. And I'll let you know if you go beyond the 10 minutes. I would like to introduce city staff who are with us tonight. Jessica Baldwin is our senior planner. Amy Bradshaw is our planning coordinator. Melissa Huffman is our assistant city attorney. Ron Satterfield is assistant director of planning. Is Megan here? No, Megan's not here tonight. Okay. I'm Kathleen Egan. I'm chair of the commission, and if the other commissioners would please introduce themselves. Ashley?
Ashley Wilson.
Stephen Sulkey.
Ron Wilson.
Michael Smith.
Thank you. Now we will swear in those present who wish to present evidence related to an agenda item.
If I could have all staff, applicants, and anyone in the audience who wishes to speak tonight to please stand up and raise your right hand. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will begin by asking if there are any corrections to the minutes from our last meeting. Okay, thank you. Then the evidentiary proceeding may now begin with the first agenda item, and we will start with old business. The first one is 411 South 2nd Street.
Madam Chair,
Chairperson Egan, I'm sorry, can you do a vote on the minutes? Yes. We need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry,
and
I forgot.
I was going to ask you the same thing.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, sorry. Okay, we'll have a motion to approve the minutes. I'll
I
make
so
a
motion.
Okay, and second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll start with the first agenda item.
Cool, okay. Good evening. So the first item on our agenda tonight is continued old business of 411 South 2nd Street. The applicant seeks approval for modifications to the rear facade, the construction of a one-story garage, the construction of a one-story cabana, the installation of an in-ground pool, the installation of a louvered fence, and landscaping modifications. The project was originally heard at the April 14th, 2022 meeting, and the HPC issued a continuance of the review of the project until May 12th. At the May 12th meeting, the applicant requested a continuance. The JWH Fuse House was built circa 1893 and enlarged between 1910 and 1915, is a colonial revival style dwelling with a one-story cross gable featuring double lunette vented pediments and Tuscan columns supporting a hipped roofed L-shaped wraparound porch. The home also features a carriage stone and hitching post and iron gate in the front yard. The house is located on the east side of South 2nd Street between Nunn and Church. The house is a contributing building to the Historic District Residential. Since the subject property is contributing resource in the district, revisions to all facades are subject to design review. The applicant seeks to modify the existing rear facade by enclosing a portion of the open rear porch and by installing new exterior doors and windows, installing new concrete stairs to the rear yard, and a new fireplace and privacy louvers at the existing screened porch. Here you can see those modifications in yellow. The top images show the current rear facade, and the bottom images represent proposed renderings showing new doors, windows, and stairs. The applicant seeks to construct a three-car, one-story garage in the northeastern rear yard. The proposed garage will be approximately 990 square feet with 432 square foot patio on the south side. The proposed garage will have a approximate 700 square foot concrete pad on the northern side. The proposed garage will have a 3-foot wide concrete sidewalk along the west facade between the property line and the garage. The proposed garage will be set back approximately 5 foot 8 inches from the western property line. The proposed garage will have lap siding and trim all painted to match the existing house. The proposed garage will have one exterior residential door and 3 garage doors, as well as 8 fixed windows on the east and west facades. Here you can see the renderings that's showing the west, east, and north elevations of the proposed garage. The garage will have a hipped standing seam metal roof with solar panels along the southern portion. The standing seam will match the existing house. Here are additional elevations of the proposed project. The applicant also seeks to construct a one-story cabana in the southeastern section of the property. The proposed cabana will be approximately 560 square feet and clad in lap siding and trim that match the existing house and proposed garage. The proposed cabana will be set back 5 feet 7 inches from the eastern property line and 2 foot 6 inches from the southern property line. The proposed cabana will have a series of full light glazed sliding doors and transom along the north facade. The cabana will also feature one residential exterior door and a set of fixed windows along the east side. And the cabana will also have a shed-style roof. Here you can see the location of the windows and doors of the cabana, as well as the height in relation to the proposed garage and existing home. The new proposed garage, this proposal varies from the originally submitted proposal that was heard in April. The new proposed garage is 1 story in height versus originally 2. The new proposed garage has a larger setback from the property line shared with 409 South 2nd Street. There are no concrete runners proposed for the shared right-of-way. The slope of the shed roof on the cabana is lower than previously proposed, but dimensions were not provided. And the new plantings are proposed to mitigate the view of the cabana from South 2nd Street. Please note that after our case summary was published, the applicant submitted a wrought iron gate to be installed on the southern existing driveway, and that instead of concrete herringbone pavers in that driveway, brick pavers will be installed. That's it. I'm sorry, it's not it. Design standards, no new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Design standards note that when landscaping, new construction or an addition incorporate existing trees and other significant landscape features, establish a tree protection zone around mature trees, it is not appropriate to substantially alter the typography of a site through grading, filling, or excavating. Design standards note that the style of the new garage or accessory structure may reflect the character of the main building or have historically compatible utilitarian appearance. Design standards note that swimming pools are appropriate only in rear yards and shall be in compliance with the requirements of the building code and zoning ordinance. On corner lots, pools are limited to the portion of the rear yard furthest from the street. Staff would like to enter the staff report in its entirety to the record of tonight's proceedings.
Thank you. Do any
Question,
commissioners have any questions of staff?
Go ahead, I didn't, will you speak?
I just asked if any commissioners had a question of staff.
What did you say the height of the gate for the driveway is going to be? I'm not sure I saw that in my packet. Was that a later?
It was not in your packet. It was submitted after publication of the packets. I don't have the approximate height of that, but I bet the applicant can tell you when he comes up.
On page 11, under the conditions, number 13, bypass application to be submitted for roof material specifications.
They only provided that it would be standing seam, so I don't have like the exact specifications on it.
Okay, I know they've said that it will duplicate the house,
Yes.
the garage and the, okay.
I just noticed there are 7 bypass portions to this particular application. Is that normal? I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen 7 bypasses attached.
I mean, I think it varies from project to project. I felt like there were things that I personally wanted clarification on for the record of the history of the property, and that would require more information be submitted, and that was the only way I could figure to get that information submitted in a manner that was timely to the meeting.
Right, so that information was missing from the application package, or?
Correct.
Thank you.
And I've got one other, on number 14, all drainage, which was a concern of a lot of the neighbors the last time, from the building expansion must be diverted away from adjacent properties and to the public right-of-way. So that'll be a stipulation that the guttering and the drainage from that garage or any other will be properly.
Yes, sir. That was given to me by the stormwater engineers from the city to use.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We would like at this time to give the applicant an opportunity to provide additional evidence or answer questions.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rob Romero. I'm the architect for this project, 210 Greenfield Street.
And I'm Cameron Holman. I live at 411 South Second.
We're just here to answer questions. I think the gable or the ridge of the garage is going to be around 14 feet, and the tallest point of the shed of the cabana is going to be around 12 feet, and it's around a 212 slope, more similar to the house. And the drainage, we're going to go ahead and make sure it's guttered, and we're going to drain it around towards this side of the driveway side of the house. So it's not going to go to the north side. Most likely, we'll bring it down in front of and behind their property and down the driveway through French drains.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the roof that's going to match the main house?
Standing seam, we're just going to match it. We can provide her a spec of that when it comes to the selection time.
Okay.
I've got a question about the cabana roof. You tell us in your update that it's going to be lower, but you don't tell us how much lower. It looks like the window configurations and the drawing that you've submitted is the same drawing.
I changed this, the slope, I brought it a little lower.
Let me just finish. It didn't say what the pitch was, I think, in the original packet, because I was trying to make, given your comment that it was going to be lower, 2 inches lower, 8 inches lower, a foot lower. You're not telling me or us what the difference, what you're doing to it.
We revised the design slightly. We raised the end, the lower point to 9 feet, right? And we decided 11 at the high end for the inside dimension, so which is approximately going to be 12, another 12 inches or so. So our guess is going to be around 12 feet for the top part of the roof.
So you're saying it's going to be a 12-inch drop on the front, the highest, to just shift it lower.
That's right.
It's going to drop 12 inches.
Yeah, and it's a flatter slope.
Flattening the slope.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I'd like to compliment the homeowner for coming back and implementing so many concerns that your neighbors addressed during the
Yeah,
April
no,
meeting.
absolutely. You know, clearly understand that we're invested emotionally. We love living downtown. We don't want to create any strife amongst the neighbors, and we've been able to you know, open more lines of communication with adjacent neighbors and kind of address their concerns. I mean, taking off that top of the garage is a very large concession for us, but I think ultimately you know, we can live with that. I think that the neighborhood is more amenable to our neighbors, and I think it's kind of a win-win in that situation. So I'm happy to discuss, and of course, you know, for the record, we've let everybody know that, you know, any other issues, please come up and talk to us. We'll be happy to sort of discuss and see what we can do.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll open the evidentiary portion to members of the public for comment or additional evidence.
And if I could ensure that all applicants and members of the public that are using the podium, as well as all commissioners, please speak clearly into your microphones. For some reason, the sound system in here is not picking up the sound, so I realize it's uncomfortable to speak very close to your microphones, but that's what we need for the recordings. Thank you.
Okay, please state your name and address.
Sure, I'm Jeff from 412 South 3rd Street. Right, so as you can see here, well, basically my presentation deals with two factors, the tree impact as well as the business impact of this proposal. So what I'm showing here is we are at 412 South 3rd Street, which you can see on the right of your screen there. 411 is obviously the proposal, and that blue strip in the middle, that's how our backyards kind of butt up to each other, and the blue strip is where all this is proposed to take place. So our first concern was with the tree impact that this may have. We have a lot of old pecan trees and so on in our backyard. So we had a certified arborist from the Bartlett Company. They came to assess the impact that the construction project would have on the trees in the immediate area. So most of their assessment focus was on the large pecan tree that borders our properties. That's actually on our side of the border, but it's probably a foot between our tree and their property. And the arborist stated that, you know, though they were focusing on our pecan tree because we hired them, that these findings would apply to any tree where its critical root zone was affected in general. So what you're looking at here is on the right-hand side where the star is, that's our house, that's 412 South 3rd. You can see the yellow dashed outline, that's 411. And you can see the other blue star, that's the pecan tree in question, that's on our side of the property border. The red circle is what's known as the critical root zone. As you can see, there's a lot of critical root zones for all the trees in the neighborhood, but as I stated, we hired a specialist just for the trees on our property, so I'm just focusing solely on that pecan tree, but like I said, the arborist stated could be true to any of the trees affected by this project, just to give you some context of the relation. So according to the Bartlett experts, this is just a little background information. I highlighted the portions of their report that I thought were relevant. What it states is that at a minimum, root pruning may be necessary to minimize the damage to the tree's root system during the construction. It also goes on to say that improper root pruning and root damage from excavation can cause great harm to a tree, which may affect tree health and or structural stability, and that a tree risk assessment should be performed prior to cutting any roots, and alternative techniques such as boring under the roots should be considered. I'm not familiar with this being a part of any of this proposal where there's any kind of root pruning or those types of things taken into consideration with the proposal of what's being done here on 411. If you would, forward the next slide. They continued to go on to talk about what construction damage would take place, that tree decline and mortality around the newly constructed homes, as they call them, in this case a garage, occur primarily from damage caused to the root system. And during construction, roots are frequently cut when installing foundations, whether it be water, sewer lines, driveways, sidewalks, etc. Roots are also lost when soil is removed during the grading process. Cutting large roots increases the likelihood of wind throw, especially during storms. To my understanding, wind throw is when roots can just snap. They just give away. And as it goes on to say that this may also lead to structural decay of support roots and the lower stem tissues that can cause tree failure even years after construction. And even compaction of the soil or placing fill over a tree root system during grading is equally as destructive as cutting and removing the roots. So this is the assessment that the Bartlett experts did. What they've done here is they've taken into consideration the current health of the tree as well as the proposal. And you can see their score sheet here. It's based on the proximity of that particular tree in question, and its current age, its current state, and so on. What they've done is they've given this tree after construction to have a score of 56 out of 100. Now, as you can see, what I've highlighted there on the bottom, anything less than a 59 is considered poor. And these trees can be expected to decline during or after construction, regardless of how this project is managed. Pretty much saying that this tree is in great jeopardy, as well as any surrounding trees that are within the critical root zone that may be affected by this project. If you would, please. So that's basically what I had to say about the trees on our property, but I also wanted to speak from a business impact. Now, we are neighbors, but we are also the owners of the C.W. Worth House Bed and Breakfast. That is a view from our backyard right now. To give you a little perspective on that, if you see the little pond in front of you, and behind that is the hedge line. To the right of that, the large tree, that's the pecan tree I was just speaking about. So right behind the hedge line there, that's where the proposed construction is. What I've highlighted here is we've had many guests at our bed and breakfast. They have, sit back here, and a true current quote from our guests as they were speaking to us, as I've highlighted there, is, "This is the most relaxed I have been in months." They enjoy sitting back here. They enjoy what they see. They enjoy the quiet. What we're proposing, and I think it's just logical to assume this, is that if this project takes place, we can only logically assume that the thoughts or the comments of our guests would be, gee, I would have waited till after construction, or wish I knew there was construction before I booked. And now can you imagine looking at the picture that you're looking at, and right behind that hedge there is a crane or a bulldozer or trucks going back and forth with cement or whatever the case may be. Now, how is that going to affect our reviews? Is that going to be on Google Reviews all of a sudden? Wait till after construction. There's construction in the backyard. Please don't book here. This type of thing. I think it's only logical to assume that we're projecting great revenue loss of our business. So that's, may not be a historic concern, but certainly a concern of ours. And I wanted to bring it to your attention. And if you would please forward to the next slide. This is the opposite view. So this is that tree that we were just looking at, but from the reverse. And what you're looking at here is also another portion of our property. Again, from the back, if you can kind of see through that little arbor there, you can kind of see a little white porch, that's our house. So where the perspective of this picture is I'm standing on our overflow parking lot, if you will. That's our arbor with the canopy above it. We have been asked to now remove that arbor. It's in the shared space, it's in the easement. And we're not sure why, if it's a shared space. With this construction project is not set to go into that area. However, we've been told we must remove this. It's in a shared space. We truly don't know why. We also don't know who pays for that. That shouldn't be out of my pocket, it's not my project. And what will replace it? That's not in the plans either. So are we now looking at just a complete removal of this arbor with an empty hole into our backyard? Or will there be a new fence constructed? Will there be a gate put up for that? We don't know, and who pays for that again? So that's not in any of the plans. And as you can see to the right of your picture, that is the greenery that will be destroyed and removed. That is the entrance to the garage. There's also in the proposal some permeable pavers. That's what those yellow dots are meant to indicate. And if you can see that on the grass there, I added that to the image. So that from those yellow dots to the greenery, that is the shared easement. Part of this proposal is to have the permeable pavers there. Now, again, how high are those going to be? Is there going to be a lip there where I have those yellow dots? Because you can't see them in the picture, but to your left, that's our property as well. There's cars there. That's where overflow parking for our guests is. Now, picture a lip or a raised surface there. Cars can't back up into it anymore. It makes that piece of property, practically useless for us. I wish that was part of the proposal, but I don't see it. And how the grading is supposed to be there. Just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. And if you could, just one more. So this is just my general summary, and this is the effects of the proposed project, I believe, from a historical neighborhood perspective. I understand how the neighbors want this backyard. It looks nice. I do agree. But I'm talking about from a neighborhood perspective, from the historical perspective, from all the neighbors, collectively, that at least I've spoken to. And I think of the positive impact that this brings. And I'm at a loss, quite frankly. You see the question mark there. I can't think of one that it does for our neighborhood. As far as the negative impact, you're talking about changes to the natural historic landscape that's been there for, hundreds of years now. Obviously, the certified arborists from Bartlett project a health loss and deterioration of the historic trees that are affected by this project. And we're projecting a revenue loss to the C.W. Worth House Bed and Breakfast, and also a subpar experience for our guests who have just come there to relax. And really, I ask why. It's just for a garage and a swimming pool, and I can't wrap my head around the benefits it brings. So that's really all I had to say to him. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Got a question for you, sir, before you move. Can you go back a slide? Is that the pecan tree we're seeing that's
Yes, that's the one that borders our properties.
And how far is it from the property line?
Oh gosh, I would say 2 feet.
And clarify for me the fence. Is the fence not on your property? You're talking about it having to be moved.
So from what I
and
understand,
who will pay for it?
From what I understand, so this was put up pre myself and my wife, who were new owners of this bed and breakfast. It is not technically on our property, but it was part of the shared easement, the right given to us to use this space as well as everybody else that has access to that easement that goes out to 2nd Street.
Because it's in the easement?
Right. So we technically, to be completely honest, do not own that, though it was an existing structure when we purchased the property. So my questions were then, what is left if it gets removed? And who pays for the removal of it? And legally, from my understanding, is we must continue to have access to this shared easement as well as our property that you can see that's to the left of those dotted lines. So that those are all just open unknowns. And that's why I bring it to your attention.
Have you ever, I know you're a new owner of the inn, but has any off-street parking ever occurred in the backyard of the Worth House?
Yes, yes, multiple times.
Does it now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
So just to be clear, there's no, we're not denying rights. I mean, part of that property deal was that there's ingress and egress of people and vehicles along that right-of-way. That includes, the deed preferences rights to us on that shared portion, but that does not deny them access. They, of course, have access. It's in their deed as well. And I think we've spoken with them already just to kind of about this sort of stuff. And to, I think, address his question about the arbor, I mean, it's a shared easement space that cannot be obstructed. And so the previous owners had intended to move that back, but then the transition of the properties just was inconvenient, unfortunately.
I know that you have some pavers that advance to your garage doors. Is that right?
So the
Off
intent,
of the easement?
yeah, the intent is to have a permeable pavement amongst that, or in that shared space for drainage.
But will it go out into the easement, or are you starting it at the 10-foot easement back towards your property?
It includes that 10 feet that we share.
Okay.
Of course, if he's agreeable. If not, we'll just apron our true property line.
Okay, so that will encompass all of the 10-foot easement to the other property line, go up to your garage doors?
Correct. So with the intent of discussing it with the folks at C.W. Worth to find some mutual agreement with the grading, so they can still use their property to do overflow parking.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So on the grading part, I don't see in the plan where you're going to remove any soil or add to with fill. It's the same level as it is now, just putting the buildings up basically, and the pool?
Yeah, correct. I may defer somewhat to Rob and contracting on that, but yeah, essentially it's not.
All right, so there's no fill going over root systems? No.
No, that's not our intent at this point, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? If so, please come forward and state your name and address. And remember the time limit.
Yes, very short tonight. My name is Sean Maxwell. I live at 405 South 2nd Street. Next slide, please. When we spoke here at the last previous meeting on April 14th, we had questions and concerns about the drainage, flooding, and trees. We were instructed to contact city zoning about our concerns. We contacted zoning. They directed us to contact the city engineer and the city arborist. We contacted the city engineering department and exchanged emails about questions we had. We never got any conclusive answers. The engineer concluded by stating that any concerns of 411 South 2nd Street project will adversely affect your property is a civil matter between you and the applicant. City arborist said our concerns about the mature trees and any damage sustained were a matter between the applicant and the adjoining property owners. We spoke with Jessica Baldwin on Monday, June 6th, with questions, some of which we were answered by Jessica, others she asked us to talk about tonight. Garage. These are the questions. Where and what type of lighting will be outside of the garage and for the sidewalk on the west side property line of the garage? Will there be an HVAC unit for the garage? If so, where will it be placed? Renderings show a large section of concrete, pervious and impervious of 26 by 45 feet, a total of 1,170 square feet in the front of the garage. That's a considerable amount of concrete that we and the neighbors will be looking at from our backyards, which is not visually pleasing. There's no indication on the renderings to have any vegetation to soften the appearance. Will there be vegetation planted? There's no mention in the application of how the concrete in front of the garage will tie into the Worth House parking lot and the private right-of-way west of the garage entrance. How will the drainage be managed and mitigated? There's a lattice-style brick wall and a privet hedge on multiple trees lining the wall on the inside of the west property line of the proposed garage. It has been there at least 26 years since we moved in. There's no mention in the application what will be done with the hedge and the wall by the applicant. In the rendering, there's nothing there. There's no visible gutters on the garage or the cabana on the plans. Are there gutters proposed for the garage and the cabana? Next, please. Drainage and right-of-way. Condition number 14 in the proposed plan states all drainage from the building expansion must be diverted away from the adjacent property owners and to the public right-of-way. What public right-of-way will be used? Right-of-way next to our home is used by 5 properties. It is a private right-of-way. The architect references this right-of-way as a public right-of-way in the application information, page 6, item 7, letter D. This is incorrect. Is the drainage to be put down the 5 property owners' private right-of-way or down the applicant's driveway and onto the public right-of-way? Plans and renderings do not match. It appears that the stucco wall on the Worth House east side of the property goes from 4 foot tall to 6 foot tall, then becomes a fence, and then becomes a 6-foot stucco wall on the south side of the property facing Church Street. How tall are the walls and where will they be? Where will all the construction traffic be entering and leaving the property? The right-of-way easement or the applicant's driveway? If it is a right-of-way easement, this will put additional stress and damage to the existing trees and water and sewer lines in this shared right-of-way. We are concerned the neighbors will be left to deal with the repercussions of drainage issues and tree stability and be a civil matter between the applicants and the neighbors. Next, please. The last time I was here, we talked about trees and the vegetation, all the mature trees that were in and around the property. And what you're looking at now is what they call a tree protection zone and critical root zone map. And this is, the tree protection zone is a radius around a tree which equals 1 foot or for every inch of tree trunk measured in diameter at breast height. The elm and pecan trees close to the applicant's property add shade and, to the surrounding neighborhood, environment, and habitat. There's nothing in the plans that address how the root system of these trees will be affected by the disruption of the ground and construction process on how they will be protected. Next, please. This is the tree protection zone overlaid with proposed site plan. Tree protection zone of the oak tree and the pecan tree fall in the garage and concrete areas in front of the garage. The pecan tree on the south side of the property falls in the cabana location. The new plans show the oak tree on the southwest corner of the garage. It or other existing vegetation were not on the original plans. What is the significance of this oak tree on the plans now? I might want to point out what Mr. Mason said about the pecan tree up on the right-hand side there. He shared with me the same report that he had from Bartlett Tree. And I have spoken with an arborist who concurs with what they were given from the Bartlett Tree. One thing that Jeff did not mention in his presentation, I'd just like to read out real quick. In their conclusion, scores were calculated based on trees close proximity to property line and a proposed site work on neighboring lot, where construction activities and significant root loss will occur almost up to root flare. With approximately 50% or root system likely sustaining damage, the tree is expected to decline during or shortly after construction, regardless of any preservation measures put in place. While this is not a tree risk assessment, if the roots were disturbed near property line to make room for a foundation, the tree will have a higher likelihood of failure during high wind weather events which are frequent in this area. Next slide, please. This is the recent flooding that we've had this past Friday. And this is the entrance into the garage area, the concrete. 770 square feet. Next slide, please. This is, yellow line indicates the permeable concrete, which is 10 by 45. The red line, you want to add another 16 feet to the right beyond that brick wall for additional 1645 of concrete at the entrance to the garage. How will the drainage and water be mitigated at the entrance to the garage? Will current lattice wall be removed? Will there be vegetation planted to soften the appearance of concrete driveway? Now, again, I'd like to just side on that. I have spoken with an engineer who came on site and looked at this project. We talked about drainage, we talked about the project in general, and his question to me was, has this area been looked at as far as mitigation of water? Has an engineer been involved in this project? This is a very, very, there's a lot of stuff going on to a small piece of land. And he's saying this, we need to get an engineer involved in this. There should have been an engineer looking at this because there's water issues, there's tree issues, there's a lot of things that are not normal in a project of this size. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Richard Bunting at 409 South 2nd Street. This will be very short. They've covered a lot of the root system issues, and I know that the architect is concerned about that himself. I'd also talked to him before the meeting about the neighborhood setting of retaining, preserving original and historically appropriate fences and walls, and this is regarding the brick wall behind my property in front of their property, and he indicated that they were planning on saving that, and I just wanted to have that part of this record as well as the record from the last meeting on April 14th. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Travis Gilbert, 211 Orange Street, Historic Wilmington Foundation. Let's pull up that number 1. Jessica, please. Yeah. So I just want to make sure, for the record, and everybody in the room here understands the purview of what I'm speaking of tonight on behalf of the Historic Wilmington Foundation. I'm just speaking about condition number 16. No other scope here this evening on behalf of the Historic Wilmington Foundation. We support number 16, so we're not advocating for any changes or providing testimony or evidence to suggest any other changes. I just thought this would be a great learning opportunity for everybody, and then moving forward, perhaps we might find another subject property that warrants this condition. So the condition states that an investigation using professional archaeologists and contemporary methods is recommended during the excavation of the in-ground pool. We believe the subject property in the site plan as presented really has an opportunity here to ensure that no irreplaceable historic resources are lost. So just as some context, what you're seeing here is a map from the University of Michigan's Clements Library. It's in the Sir Henry Clinton collections up there. And this shows you the fortifications that were constructed by British troops during their occupation of Wilmington in 1781. It was under Major James Craig. So this shows you the barracks, the fortifications that existed on the south side, just as some context. You can see the courthouse there in the center. That is Front and Market Streets. So I'm looking at many of you up there. Your homes are within those fortifications. So let's pull up, please, Jessica, the second map. So I'm not going to kid anybody. Sean, who's been an incredible resource here for mapping, volunteered to overlay that 1781 map from the University of Michigan onto our city's landscape here. And you can see that several of the quarters, the Marines' quarters and Grenadiers and so forth, are within this block and within this subject property. And that's the light bulb that went off in my head when I was sitting in the audience during your last month's meeting. So I wanted to go back and do a little bit more due diligence. So I said it would fit within the standards. I understand the quasi-judicial process here, and HWF is not commenting on anything other than that condition and how it relates to your standards. Your standard 4.2, new construction infill, states that applicants should, quote, survey the site in advance to minimize the possibility of disturbing unknown archaeological resources. This is a very progressive statement. Historic Wilmington Foundation is thankful that it exists within your design standards, and we're thankful for Jessica taking our comments and including it as a condition in this application or COA. I just want to, for the record, make everyone aware that fortunately our community has a nonprofit called the Public Archaeology Corps. It's a 501c3 organization that performs free archaeological surveys using volunteer work through their volunteer executive director, Jonathan Schleier, who is a professional archaeologist. So we have an incredible nonprofit resource. They have an ongoing excavation in the 0 block of South Front Street currently. Dan Camacho's cistern was excavated. It's the organization that found Rock Spring, where River Place is today. So we have a nonprofit for zero or extremely minimal costs can perform this condition on this site. Now, moving forward from here, you're going to see me up here every time stating a condition number 16 should exist. No. This map shows you that we believe there's a high probability of resources on this subject property, so it warrants this condition and this standard. I think as we move forward, other applicants, perhaps it will not be as warranted because the evidence does not suggest there's a high probability. But please know that I'm proud of the city, I'm proud of the design standards and our staff here. The city of Charleston is currently working through our archaeological excavations through their zoning process. And I'm glad to say that Wilmington is a little more progressive than Charleston. Imagine that. Thank you all.
I've got a question. I appreciate the education and information you shared. It's my belief that one of the standards is that when it's excavated for the pool, that Jessica will have access. They could actually use the resource you're talking about. So that site will be studied as the earth is brought up.
Absolutely. Jessica was very kind to put it as that condition number 16. And I know we talked about how city staff has to work through, they cannot recommend private entities and so forth, but as a nonprofit, it seems a little more respectable, and I think Rob knows where I live. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
Just a couple letters from neighbors. I don't know. I think these might have been submitted to Jessica, and I know that they're weighted a little bit different because they're not sworn in here. But Angela Smith at 415 South 2nd Street. Dear members of the commission, I'm writing to you because unfortunately I'm unable to attend the above hearing. I own and reside at the property located at 415 South 2nd Street, which is directly adjacent to the neighbor's property located at 411. I recently had the pleasure of viewing the revised architectural plans and full details and all the additions for the above property. I would like it noted that I am in full support of the revised plans without any reservation whatsoever and have no doubt it will be beautiful. She includes her contact information for that. And then Carol Chappell at the corner of Church and 2nd Street there, she said, thank you for the opportunity to add our support for this application via emails. We are currently out of state and therefore unable to attend the meeting and offer our support in person. Our home is located at 119 Church Street, which is on the northwest corner of Church and South 2nd. We believe Dr. Beard's revised plans will enhance and enrich our historic street, and therefore happy to support him in the project. Again, we apologize for not being able to attend, and gives contact information. That's all I got for that. Thanks.
While you're up at the microphone, and I don't know if your architect wants to come up, but the gentleman that spoke that had so many concerns, either from staff or from you as the applicant, if we could pull that slide up and kind of address some of those points. from, we could just run through those and between the two of you,
Yeah, of
share
course.
some light on that.
I mean, I'm, clearly there are guidelines, so whatever's appropriate to the guidelines. There have not been any, we'll have a designer of sorts, so there'll be choices that have to be made for that, but it will fit within the guidelines that are published. HVAC unit, there is probably not, if there is, it'll be maybe a mini split, which will be, on our side of the property. It's not going to be visible to any of the neighbors. As I spoke, that there will be a pervious concrete pad for drainage. As far as some of the landscape plan, I know we had spoken that we will do a bypass. I need to make sure that this project is going to happen before we spend the money to do a landscape architect design for that. What else? There's no mention in the application of how the concrete in front of the garage will tie into the Worth House parking lot and private right-of-way west of the garage entrance. I mean, we can certainly provide details. I'm not sure what you need in your scope as HPC. I mean, there's clearly going to be property owner to property owner discussions amongst this because of the shared area. Go ahead.
The concrete in front of the, I'm a little confused. So you have the permeable pavers, now then there's concrete in front of the garage. Is that permeable or non-permeable concrete? That is non-permeable.
It's a regular concrete apron.
It's regular. Could that become permeable to give more oxygenation to the tree roots? Is that a possibility?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely, absolutely open to that. And I think that's the intent really, is to have that whole area to be pervious for drainage. It doesn't need to be solid concrete up to our garage doors.
So you would agree to a condition that that would be pervious?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
No visible gutters. Yep, and I know we spoke with Paul and Denise there on Church Street regarding their concern about drainage off the cabana. I think water mitigation with some sort of rear gutter system is completely reasonable to be able to divert that water appropriately. Anything else you need to add? I think Sean had a concern about the wall and the fence. So on the south side of the property, there is a wall that is currently in state that borders our property with 415. Part of that rear wall is deteriorating, so our intent is to repair that and extend that along that whole L shape as much like kind as we can to that 6-foot limit all the way across to create privacy between our two properties.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and I know he did. And I was, on two, the rendering seemed to differ at one point, just the portion by the pool, and then this attachment 4 that's larger shows it running the full length of the back and tying into that existing. And it looks like it goes down on the other side of the cabana. So which is it? Is it on the rear of the property? Is it going to be?
It's going to encompass, it's going to encompass the north side of the property where the right-of-way meets the corner of the C.W. Worth and our property, run that north to south between the the Washington Square folks, and then also make the curve west to border along Church. So it's going to be one contiguous wall that exists from second, where our property is between 411 and 415. That same wall will border that whole L shape. Yeah.
Up to the garage, to the start of the garage and down the side, or just to the garage?
No, past the garage. So yeah, to create the border between C.W. Worth and ourselves as well.
And did that go from 4 to 6 feet? I mean, there was some mention of that. Is it?
Yeah, I think that maybe just a little bit oversight. The intent is to have it 6 feet, right? Yeah.
6.
Just one little question. The pool, I'm assuming, is going to be dug with a backhoe or a track hoe or something along those lines, and then Travis's people, whatever, okay. The concrete, will it be pumped into the property, or will big concrete trucks be driving in there?
No, so we had spoken, one of the potential pool folks had clarified with his concrete guy that they could pump it from the road. They should be able to pump it from the road into that back section. He may be able to fit us in between where our existing driveway is.
Okay, 'cause I know most wooden materials are delivered with a forklift truck off the back of a truck because they can't get in there. So the only
Sure.
truck that might go in there would be a very heavy concrete truck.
Sure.
So if that's pumped, that kind of alleviates some of that stress.
That's the intent. We're trying to alleviate as much as we can and mitigate as much as we can with construction.
Okay.
I totally get that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the oak tree to come out? I didn't see anything specifically about tree removal, but it seems like the oak tree is...
So the intent was to move the garage slightly east to give that more of a buffer zone. I assume you're meeting the oak tree between 411 and 409, just to the north of us on the big oak tree in the corner.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. The intent's to save it.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I'm Paul Frandano. I live at 207 Church Street. My wife Denise is here with me. She's our contract manager, so if you ever do any work with us, you'll be working with Denise. Thanks for the opportunity to raise our concerns about the project that Dr. Beard is with us in the document and with Cam here as well. We share a property line of about 60 feet with Dr. Beard. And we have in our neighborhood arguably the clearest, deepest, and most unobstructed view from our back porch to Nunn Street. And despite 30 years of working in CIA, we do not surveil him. We do not erect listening posts. We do not run operations. We are good neighbors, as is Dr. Beard. We have no problem acknowledging Dr. Beard's right to develop his property precisely as he pleases, consistent with strictures enforced by the Preservation Commission. We observe, however, the key sentence from the Certificate of Appropriateness application, page 11, condition 4, isn't really clearly addressed in the revised project, and which perhaps explains its appearance as a condition. All drainage from building expansion must be diverted away from adjacent property owners and to public right-of-way. That's already been raised tonight, I think at least twice, and it caught our attention at least twice. Our yard and property are at the foot of a gentle downward slope from Nunn to Church Street that, with the exception of hurricane rains, has been dry basically for the 8 years of our ownership of 207 Church. The proposed cabana structure with its steeply sloping roof, I guess it's now going from 12 feet to about 10, and within 2.5 feet of our backyard, stretches along the property line 32 feet and an additional 6 feet for pool equipment in the western corner of the lot. Gravity is going to assure that any runoff will empty directly into our yard and will, as much or most hard surface storm runoff of the surrounding pavement will as well. So we're particularly concerned about a passage in the April discussion that seemed to close the matters in these words, and I'm quoting directly from the minutes, not from a transcript or any notes I took while watching the film. Mr. Sulky said he was concerned about where the stormwater would drain, and Mr. Wilson agreed that he did not agree with approving a plan knowing stormwater will be an issue. City Attorney Huffman said that legally that could not be considered by the commission since stormwater cannot be required for a lot of this size. Moreover, drainage and storm sewerage are, we understand but really don't know, these are county affairs rather than city affairs, both drainage and stormwater and so forth, and sewage especially. So surely drainage, though, is an issue that still needs to be addressed. And we had neighborly discussions with Dr. Beard on precisely this topic, specifically with reference to the cabana runoff and our interest in a drainage scheme that moved water from his backyard into the public water system. I believe he said he'd refer this matter to his landscape architect. But let me repeat that apart from the open question of what are we going to do with all this water, we have no objection to Dr. Beard's proposed revisions to his construction project. Indeed, we're thinking that we'll eventually plant, with the blessing, of course, of the Historical Preservation Commission, a nice row of dwarf Italian cypress trees along our back fence that will add beauty to our yard and to our neighborhood. So thank you very much for listening.
Any other members of the public wish to speak? In that case, we will close the evidentiary portion of the meeting and move to commissioner deliberation.
I wanted to start by asking staff, but I think specifically Assistant City Attorney Huffman, about the scope of this project and what we can or can't consider. We're essentially an architectural review board, and as far as, you know, drainage issues and engineering, I don't know what we can do with that, but I also want to know what neighbors might be able to do if something, depending on the outcome of this, whatever the outcome might be one way or the other, what would the next step be if someone were not in favor of whatever the outcome of this would be? I'm just curious, just for public information and knowing what the next step could be.
Well, those are a number of questions. To start with, your purview, as you said, you're basically an architectural review board. Your purview is to the congruity of the design elements that you're reviewing. The statement that the gentleman read from the last meeting about stormwater still stands. A lot of that size, the city cannot require that they submit a stormwater plan. It's just outside of the city's control, and stormwater plans are outside of a design review for the purposes of HPC. If someone in the audience or even the applicant is displeased with the commission's decision today, they can go with the route of appealing the matter to the Board of Adjustment. A determination would have to be made at the Board of Adjustment as to whether they have standing to succeed in going to the substance of that appeal, but that would depend on the circumstances of the individual that would be appealing.
So the Board of Adjustment wouldn't deal with anything having to do with stormwater or similar civil engineering, but potentially economic harm, or maybe the potential for damage to adjacent mature trees?
No, the Board of Adjustment would only be allowed to review you all's decision. So if someone is unhappy with whichever way the board, your commission votes tonight, that would be the only thing the Board of Adjustment would be allowed to review based on the record. If something happens, say to, and this is just I'm imagining a scenario, if something happens to one of the neighbors' properties while construction is being done, if something physically is damaged, that is a private matter between those two neighbors. Same thing if a tree is damaged on one person's property while another person is doing construction. That is a private matter between those parties. We're not saying that there isn't a remedy. We're just saying that the remedy does not involve the city government controlling the situation. That would be something that those individual neighbors could take to court. Same thing with there's drainage issues that damage one of the neighboring properties. I would encourage them to contact a private attorney and see if they have a cause of action there for damage to their property, if perhaps the other neighbor did something negligent when they were constructing any new.
So the pecan tree behind the Worth House pecan tree is on their property. If there's damage there to that tree and it falls and does damage to either Worth House property or any other property, then there's potential for civil litigation ultimately with that instance, with that situation.
Yes.
I was going to add something similarly in terms of, I've had this issue in my house, in terms of the trees. The arborist will never get involved with any kind of matter between two neighbors on a particular tree. It becomes a civil matter, a private property issue, and it's a very complex area in terms of different circumstances that affect the tree. Who owns it, where it is, that kind of thing. So it's somewhat complex and way beyond anything we can even deal with, and we're not allowed to. I was also going to say that we all are inconvenienced by construction, and that's just the way life is. I mean, we can't stop a project because construction inconveniences somebody or creates a negative atmosphere. That's, you know, we can't possibly deal with that. And we've never been asked, nor do we ever weigh in on the impact of a property construction on neighboring houses. Beyond the congruity issue and anything else, it's beyond anything that we can deal with.
That's correct.
So we're limited specifically to what this project is in terms of congruity.
Mass, scaling, that,
Right.
that sort of thing. Yes, ma'am.
So all those go into, whether it's an appeal or whether a different board or whether it's a property issue between private owners.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Someone like to make a motion?
Despite everything, I would still like that impervious concrete to be changed to pervious, if we can do that, because.
If we could add a condition.
A condition, because that would help that pecan tree roots a lot, instead of having.
I would suggest to the applicant that you speak to an attorney about the trees and maybe find out what you might need to do to protect yourselves, to protect those trees, and what your liability or exposure might be. And that comes into play with your point, that you might adapt some things around what that could be to protect everybody and yourselves included in the trees.
And I have to also mention about this drainage. There are civil engineers that deal with this stuff, particularly with drainage and basins for catching water and things like that. So hopefully something like that would get done with a project like this. We can't speak to the drainage issue. We can't really rule on that or judge by that. But as an aside, I guess, if you will, hopefully something like that is done to help manage all of this impervious surface is going to be, that's being proposed. And then landscaping. So I guess that was a condition, right? Which condition was it about the inclusion of landscape 11? I think planting specifications. And pavers, yeah. That those, I guess those pavers would have a pervious component to them.
And Melissa, I have a question as well. We can make it a condition on the parking pad in front of the garage that it be pervious material so that there's drainage. But we can't actually make any conditions regarding the right-of-way because it's not within the property line, correct? Okay. So that would be part of our condition would only be to the parking pad in front of the garage. And it's up to the neighbors to decide whether anything at all is going to be done in the right-of-way.
And yes, that's
And
correct.
this-
And
and I
because
would
it's
think the city-
essentially treated as a private access easement, we've found it in the deeds as an easement. We found it on, I believe, our GIS maps, but it was never accepted by the city, so it's not a city right-of-way.
Okay.
It is shared amongst the certain property owners right there, and they would need to come to some sort of agreement as to maintenance and improvements to that property. And again, that's another private civil matter.
It's better if they just deal with that separately from this application.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I think that it's important to the homeowner and his architect that in this addition and revision, that obviously the drainage right around the pool and off the back of your house and in the driveway should be a concern, and I'm sure it is, not just what's going to happen in the garage and the alley or the easement up to the garage. I think that the owner has demonstrated from the April meeting a willingness sensitive to the concerns of the neighbors. I do think that they have a right to develop and have a garage, have a right to develop the back portion of their, being sensitive to this setting, and I think they've demonstrated some of that. I would like to put as a condition or in the record, we are generally specific about height, and in this dark drawing, the large drawing we have, I would like in the record what the pitch of the cabana is going to be, so that as it's built and developed, that it will hold to the standard, and the city building people can inspect it. But we really don't know what it's going to be, and we just generally don't approve a lot of stuff that we don't know the height, whether it's a garage or a cabana or an addition. That's always given to us, and it was not in this case.
Yeah, want a motion?
I'll do a motion, but you're going to have to help me on all the carve-outs.
Yeah, okay.
I move to approve with conditions the request for exterior alterations to the rear of the existing property, construction of a new garage, cabana, and in-ground pool at 411 South 2nd Street, and to adopt the proposed findings of fact. Details are shown on the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement contained in the application, and supplemental materials and statements made at this meeting are part of this record unless otherwise noted. This motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including the findings of fact. The following conditions shall be applied to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in staff report 1 through 19.
And condition 20, the parking pad in front of the garage will be made of pervious material?
Pervious.
Pervious material, thank you.
And we're only dealing with the part that's part of your property that the easement is removed from this consideration. That will be left up to all of the homeowners.
Right. And condition 21
Well, I wonder if, Madam Chair, if we need to have that stated now for the record rather than it being submitted later. I heard some numbers given that what it was, and it's going to be 12 inches lower, but perhaps for the record, we need that rather than just after it's approved to come in and supplement that. Is the architect willing to state that, and we'll just put it on the record?
So he said that the applicant spoke, he said that the garage would be 14 feet high and the cabana would be 12 feet high. So if we wanted to make a condition that said those would not exceed those heights stated within the meeting, that would cover it.
Okay.
The current one, is that what you're saying? Or-
That's what he got up here and spoke to us about, yes, sir.
Right. So that would be condition 21,
Right.
that the height would not exceed.
That was going to be 12 inches lower than the original pitch.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So Jessica, can you,
I think condition 21 would say that the height of the cabana would not exceed 12 feet, and that and that the height of the garage would not exceed 14 feet.
Okay.
And that should cover what he was stating here in terms of what we understand the new drawings to be, yes.
okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
They were
The
the only
proposed,
two.
the proposed request with conditions does comply with the Wilmington Design Standards for Historical Districts and Landmarks, is compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic building in the historic district in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic district residential as a whole. Applicable design standards, 1.6 Secretary of the Interior Standards, Standards 1, 2, 5, 6, 9, 10, 2.1 Landscaping, Standards 1, 2, 4, 6, 2.3 Fences and Walls, Standards 1, 2, 4, 5, and 9, 2.5 Garages, Carriage Houses, and Accessory Structures, Standard 4, 2.5 Deck and Swimming Pools, Standard 8, 3.1 Roofs, Standards 1, 8, and 11, 3.2 Windows and Doors, Standards 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 11, 3.3 Masonry Stone, Standards 1, 2, 3, 3.4 Underpinning, Standards 1, 3.5 Exterior Walls and Decorative Woodwork, Standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3.6 Porches and Entrances, Standards 1, 2, and 6, 3.8 exterior color, standards 2 and 3. 4.1 residential construction addition, standards 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. 4.2 new construction infill, standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
The motion has passed. We will now move to the second agenda item under old business, 507 South Fifth Avenue, roof material replacement.
Our next application is 507 South Fifth Avenue. It's a change in roof materials. This project is continued from last month's meeting in May. The applicant proposes to replace the standing seam metal roof on the main body of the house and porch with asphalt shingles and repair any structural roof decking issues. The Holland House, or the Schloss de Vere House, was most likely built sometime between 1898 and 1904. The two-story, two-bay-wide house features a front gable with a denticulated cornice along the roof line and a central circular vent. A one-story L-shaped hip roof front porch features a matching cornice, Tuscan columns, and a turn-spindled balustrade along the entire length of the porch. At the main entry, the porch features a denticulated pediment matching the cornice. The main entry door features a 2-light transom, and the front street-facing windows are 2/2. The subject house is located on the east side of Fifth Avenue between Church and Castle Streets. The house is a contributing resource in the Historic District Residential. Revisions to all facades of the building and site are subject to design review within this district. The applicant seeks to remove the existing standing seam metal roof and repair any structure beneath. The applicant seeks to install new waterproofing and flashing as required, as well as install new architectural asphalt shingles from Owens Corning, Oak Ridge, and Onyx Black. No gutters, downspouts, or new vents are proposed. The roof line is to remain the same. The roof is a character-defining feature of the house, and the current roof has lost a significant amount of original material, as shown here. The design standards note the diversity and variety of Wilmington's roofs. Technological advancements allowed for other roofing materials beyond the original wood shingle, such as standing seam metal, polychrome slate, and clay tiles. The design standards recommend retaining and preserving the character-defining roof materials that contribute to the historic character of the building. It is a portion of the roof needs replacement, replace it with material to match the original or historically appropriate feature in design, pattern, color, and scale. Staff notes the house just to the north at 505 South 5th Street has asphalt shingles similar to the applicant requested. And staff also notes that this currently has not changed. At our last meeting, there was a discussion about the applicant working with Historic Wilmington, and that's where we last left the project, and to that point, the project has not changed since then, to my knowledge. The staff would like to enter tonight's report in its entirety to the record of tonight's proceedings.
I saw that you put a list of all the a similar type of projects that we've approved.
Yeah, you did ask me to do that.
And you
I
did.
didn't do that.
They're there.
No,
I'm
they're
sorry.
Number
Oh,
5.
Look at that. I didn't even know I did it. That's cool.
So,
This week, this has been a long month.
yeah, I have a question about these numbers. I've never been able to interpret the dates. So I see MJW 16-31, like,
Hold on, let me get,
how do we go about finding those if we ever wanted to find them? You have A, B, C, D of similar requests for roof material replacements, approvals.
16 represents the year, and 31 is the project number of that year. So this was 2016, 2019, 2018, 2016.
Okay, thank you.
I've just got a question. 2 points on the back, proposed findings about the roof system and that sort of thing. But then you addressed the chimney, saying that there'll be a bypass for that, meaning they will reach out to you when they start roofing to ensure that the chimney remains and is
Yes, sir.
stable.
Yeah, he doesn't want to, my understanding is he said he doesn't want to replace the chimney. He'd like to keep it, but he doesn't know what it's really like up there. So assuming if something, otherwise, then we'll go from there, but yes.
I'm sorry, where was that noted about the chimney, Michael?
It's under conditions, number 3, about repair to the chimney, bypass.
Okay, all right, so for repair work, I got it, okay.
Is the applicant here to talk to us? No?
I think he stepped out, so I don't think so.
Okay. Then I will temporarily open the evidentiary portion. If the applicant comes back, we'll close that and let the applicant speak.
Yeah, I didn't get all the details, but he had to step out. We're just waiting for some financial documents from the applicant to satisfy our underwriters for the fund to replace this as a standing seam metal roof. We're all on the same page. Verbally, I have understood what the applicant's resources are, and they fit within our framework. We're just waiting for the paperwork that can confirm that. So my recommendation is, I'm sorry, Jessica, you went all through that, but to continue this item and we will work, the applicant will work, or me as the agent, with Jessica for a bypass application to put the standing seam metal roof on this.
We can prove
we
it
approve
on
it?
condition that they work this, so it doesn't have to come in before us again.
Right, and if it doesn't work with you, then approve the asphalt roof. Can't do that?
It seems like he's back to us too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, he was here, but now he's not.
I think we can make a condition that says if it gets sorted out with Historic Wilmington Foundation to put on the standing seam, he doesn't need to come back to you guys, but if that doesn't work out, then he's got to come back and we'll have just a new application type thing. And we'll go from there.
That seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, very reasonable. Let's go.
I just want to use the record. New Hanover County funded $20,000 to this fund in their budget. So thank you, New Hanover County Commissioners, for making things like this possible.
Amen. Okay, so we are closing the evidentiary portion. And we'll go to commissioner deliberation since we don't have the applicant.
I do want to make a point in the standards. 3.1, standards roofs, Article 6, when a roof covering is too deteriorated to repair, replace it with material to match the original or historically appropriate roofing material. I mean, to me, that is generally, obviously, slate for slate, metal for metal. Now, I understand in the past, roofs have been allowed to be changed. At least with the slate, there are shingles that simulate slate, but going from metal to asphalt shingle seems like an extreme change and not historically appropriate by the standard.
But if there's asphalt roofs during houses of that period, then it's historically appropriate. Doesn't have to be like material.
Then we just say get rid of every metal roof and put shingles all across Wilmington? I mean, to me, that's really opening up, yeah. And also, I understand the applicant financially perhaps doesn't have the resources, but I'll ask Ms. Hoffman this one. Are we supposed to consider money in our decisions?
You are not. You're supposed to just consider congruency.
Thank you.
But didn't the standard change from like to like materials to add, there was language added to these guidelines about it being historic appropriate?
I'm looking for that right now in the design standards. I'm not sure if.
Page
Jessica's-
58.
Page 58.
Because I think that was amended from the prior guidelines. And if houses of that era had asphalt shingle, then it would be historically appropriate.
Well, the standards state that if it, well, as Mr. Selke just said, if it needs replacement, to replace with material to match the original or historically appropriate feature. So that, to me, and I'm not the body that interprets these, but to me, that sounds like it go either or.
Sounds like, excuse me?
It could be either or. It states that it can be replaced with either material to match the original or historically appropriate feature in design, pattern, color, and scale. So I think you all would have to determine if switching to materials that are asphalt shingles would be historically appropriate in design, pattern, color, and scale.
For something that was built between 1898 and 1904.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And it is.
Okay, so, but it's not in our purview. My husband's been teasing me about that word, because I've been using it a lot. Let's say they wanted to put a slate roof on a shingled, on a metal roof. Okay, that would be considered historically
Appropriate.
Correct?
I would think so.
Because slate roofs
Feasible.
existed at that time.
The roof probably in about a year would be sagging, and the soffits would be like this. But that's not within our purview to determine this, correct?
About the weight of the materials and their effect on the building? No, I don't think so.
So is there someone after this point that that comes in and says, if you do this, this is going to be a nightmare?
Well, we've always encouraged and followed the guidelines. You know, we have, at times gone with an asphalt shingle because of financial concerns. You know, ultimately the need is to save the property. But we have Historic Wilmington partnering with this applicant, if I understand that correctly.
Correct.
And encouraging them and helping them financially to go with a metal roof. I do understand what we're talking about in the past, and I think, we just focus on this and that whether it's a continuous or we approve a standing seam metal roof, that when the funding is right and Historic Wilmington partners, this could move forward and not have to come back before us.
Yeah, replacing the slate roofs with shingles that look like slate does a really good job of faking it. It's kind of hard to fake the metal and I can't remember that's why I asked about the dates of these. I don't remember since I've been on this commission where I've ever been a part of a decision where we allowed for metal to be removed for asphalt shingles. But anyways, I think to wrap this, I'd love to go with Jessica's original. I think where we're all going is the idea of approving something a standing seam metal unless applicant, that doesn't work out, then they want to do shingles, and they would come back at that point and we approve it then. I obviously would love it if that person were here, if the applicant were here, but.
So why don't we make a motion to continue it then? All right.
Continue it and just have a motion that says that and add the condition that if approved with HWF, the applicant will, that we approve, it's approved as long as the applicant reaches an agreement with HWF and submits a bypass for standing seam metal roof. If that agreement cannot be reached, then the applicant will submit a new application.
We're going on the hope and the assumption that they can get this thing done.
Yes. Last month, I spoke to him in between, and last month, you all had mentioned, like, telling him to get some of the, like, waterproofing and
Yeah.
things kind of done, and so he's done that. He's, like, literally ready for the finished product, is my understanding. So at least it's dry now, which is a start.
So I'm adding to that first condition then. We'll add to that first condition that the new roof will be Owens Corning Oak Ridge shingles in onyx black on the porch and the house, unless the applicant can obtain a standing seam metal roof through the assistance.
I don't know if we've deliberated on that and that we're all in agreement that we want that to be an asphalt shingle roof. I think we're going with
Okay.
metal roof, and if that doesn't work out, then he can come back and do this.
All right.
Whether,
I agree, Chris. Yeah, let's do
Right.
that.
So it's a continuance.
Yeah, I mean, are we continuing then, or are we, no, we're approving the standing seam metal roof.
It's on the condition, it is passed on the condition that they go with the he goes with the standing seam metal roof.
Okay. Okay, then the motion is,
Do we need to do, wait a minute, do we need to do that? Because if it's a standing seam, it's just replacing a standing seam. Can't that be bypass?
It would be, yes.
yeah, we're approving it to allow that to happen.
Yeah, that's what the
Out of our
condition
hands.
we're saying. Now the new condition will say that we're allowing it to be bypass approved, assuming that it all works out with the Historic Wilmington Foundation. If it doesn't, the applicant and I will start all over again.
Procedurally, we could do it either way. We could you could approve it as a bypass with a standing seam roof, which if they were going to be replacing like for like, it would be anyway. Or you could continue the matter, which would still allow Jessica to work with the applicant if they came in with a like-for-like replacement, do that bypass, and then just withdraw this item. It's really 6 of one, half dozen of the other on what you all think's the cleanest way to handle it.
okay, for the replacement, let's see.
Yeah, I think we approve a standing seam metal roof, whether it's Galvalume, probably Galvalume, because it's currently a gray, it's not painted, it has a gray tone to it, so if it was Galvalume, doesn't need to be painted, or a color metal roof, then they can go ahead and do that. And if they can't do it, if they can't get that done with a metal through the process with the Historic Wilmington, they would come back and try again for the asphalt shingles, I guess.
Okay, then we need to move to a motion. Let me try it. I move to approve with, well, we don't have conditions, though, because we're going to move. Yes.
You just approve.
All right, I move to approve the request for the replacement of roofing materials at 507 South Fifth Avenue, and to adopt the proposed findings of fact, details as shown in the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement contained in the application and supplemental materials and statements made at this meeting are part of this request unless otherwise noted. This motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including findings of fact, and the roof replacement will be done by the bypass procedure. And if the bypass procedure is unsuccessful, applicant will return with a new submittal for a different roof. The proposed request with conditions complies with the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks It is compatible with the materials, features, designs, context, and character of the historic building and the historic building district in which it is located, and it is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic residential as a whole. Applicable design standards are 1.6, Secretary of the Interior Standards, Standards 1, 2, 5, 6, 9, and 10, and 3.1 roofs, Standards 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
I wanted to add, I was just reading this. Thankfully, you were doing the heavy lifting, and I was able to read this. But I think the conditions that shall be applied to ensure compliance with the design standards are actually conditions, aside from the fact that it would be metal, standing seam metal would be conditions 2 through 5, that all have to do with the gable vents and bypass application for work on the chimney and those other regulations. So this would not include number 1, but it would include 2 through 5.
Okay, did you get that? Okay. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, then, let's see, then the next item on the agenda. One second, because I lost the agenda. Here it is. Okay, the second, now we are moving to new business. So the next one is 1807 Princess Street.
No. I thought it was 509. Maybe I got mine out of order. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's next. 1807 Princess Street. The applicant requests to construct a 2-story rear addition, 1-story rear porch. The Fulton T. Allen House was built circa 1909 and is identical to the Mitchell F. Allen House at 1805 Princess Street. Both houses were built by their namesakes, and the houses were built in the colonial revival style with prairie-style elements. The 4-bay-wide 2-story house has an asymmetrical facade with a flared shingle upper story and a horizontal siding along the first floor. The main entry features side lights, a transom, and a fixed window along the east side, all with matching tracery. A 2-story projecting bay along the front south facade features a triple bay window of 1/1 sashes. The front porch features square columns with recessed panels and molded capitals. The house is located on the north side of Princess Street between North 18th and North 19th Streets. The house is a contributing resource in the R7 HDO Carolina Heights, Winnetka Heights Historic District overlay. Only that which can be seen from the public right-of-way, excluding alleys, is subject to design review. Outlined in red is the only portion of the addition that will be visible from the public right-of-way. The portion is along the eastern property line, and staff visited the site and noted none of the project was visible from any other public right-of-ways. The proposed addition will be 829 square feet in the total and will align with the existing west and east facades. The porch will be 286 square feet. Here you can see the current facade beside the proposed facade. The proposed addition will have 7 new Sierra Pacific wood premium double-hung windows and be clad in shingles on the upper story and lap siding on the first story to match the existing. The new rear doors will be Sierra Pacific wood bifold doors. All siding will be painted to match the existing. The roof will be both slate shingles to match the existing as well as standing seam metal. Portion of the roof visible from the public right-of-way will be slate matching the existing. So you can see there outlined the portion of the roof that you will see from the Princess Street. Design standards note that additions should be constructed with the least possible loss of historic building material and without damaging or obscuring the character-defining features of the building. Design standards noted that additions are to be compatible with the historic building with respect to massing, scale, height, form, size, materials, proportion, fenestration, and roof form. Design standards note that additions should be located in the rear or on an inconspicuous side of the building. Staff would like to enter the case summary report in its entirety into tonight's records.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding the staff report? Then we will give the applicant an opportunity to provide additional evidence or answer questions about the project. Please just state your name and address so we can get it into the minutes.
My name is David Ball. I'm the architect for the project. My address is 3539 Astor Court in Wilmington. This is representing the owners who, this is our second home. They are currently living in Maryland, outside of DC, and wanted to be here this evening, but were positive with COVID in their house last week, so they declined to come down. This is really an expansion to and addition to enlarge their kitchen, which is quite small in the back, and also have some more outdoor space. They are very cognizant of the historic nature of this house and want to maintain the same character as we do the addition to the rear of the property.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, then we'll close that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll open the evidentiary portion to members of the public. Okay, we'll close the evidentiary portion and open up commissioner deliberation.
No problems.
Someone want to make a motion if we have
Seems like a very well thought out plan. I mean, it's,
Yeah, it looks good.
kudos.
Okay, if someone would make a motion then?
Over here. I'll motion. I move to approve with, I move to approve with conditions the request for the rear addition at 1807 Princess Street and to adopt the proposed findings of fact. Details as shown on the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statements contained in the application and the supplemental materials. The statements made at this meeting are a part of this request unless otherwise noted. The motion is based upon the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff reports, including the finding of facts. The following conditions shall apply to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in staff report 1 through 6. The proposed request with conditions does comply with the Wilmington design standards for historic districts and landmarks, is compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic building and the historic district in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic district residential as a whole. Applicable design standards 1.6, Secretary of the State Interior Standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10. 3.1 roof standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11. 3.2 windows and doors standards 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, 13. 3.3 masonry stone standards 3, 4. 3.5 exterior walls and decorative woodwork standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3.6 porches and entrances standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. 4.1 addition standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, then we'll move on to agenda item number 4. And after this one, then we'll take a short break. So it's 509 South 5th.
All right, 509 South Fifth Avenue. The applicant proposes a series of exterior alterations and restorations to the building as well as new paint colors. The Kendall Rental House, built circa 1912, is a two-story, three-bay wide, four-bay deep house in the colonial revival style with vernacular Victorian elements. The front facade features a hipped roof with a gable front extension over a projecting pedimented bay with a lunette vent and a one-story full-width porch with a hipped roof. The porch is supported by turned columns capped by brackets and is enclosed by a simple balustrade. The right bay entry contains a half-light glazed upper panel door with a single light transom. The first-story window is a 1/1 sash, and all other windows are 2/2 sash. The subject house is located on the east side of Fifth Avenue between Church and Castle Streets. The house is a contributing resource in the Historic District residential, and revisions to all facades and the site are subject to design review within the district. On all four facades, the applicant seeks to replace the existing wood soffit, trim, fascia, siding, and metal standing seam roof. The new siding will be 1/2" by 6" bevel wood siding with a 1-lap reveal and 5" exposure. All siding will be painted PPG ethereal blue. The new trim, soffit, and fascia will be painted PPG Dove white. The new roof will be a CMP 24-gauge 16" metal standing seam roof and then cover galvanum. 5" K-style aluminum gutters and downspouts will be installed and finished to match the trim. The existing brick piers will be infilled with concrete block, and the front facade's foundation will be faced with general shell Cordoba brick, as seen here in the bottom left of the slide. The foundation along the rear and side elevations will be stuccoed with a sand texture and painted to match the siding in ethereal blue. The side and rear elevations will have 8" by 16" vents, and a crawl-space access will be located in the rear. The applicant seeks to replace the front elevation with, I didn't write this. The applicant seeks to replace the existing front windows with gin-weld sightline wood 2/2 sash windows. All windows will match the existing except for the first-story ground floor window, which was originally 1/1. The existing half-light 2-panel door will be replaced with an ETO door, vertical grain Douglas fir, exterior half-light 2-panel door, and the existing transom will remain. So you can see in the image, that's the one window with a new light pattern. The applicant seeks to replace the front porch's existing wood ceiling and flooring with wood 1" by 4" tongue and groove boards. The existing temporary wood columns will be replaced with 3 new 6" by 6" wood columns highlighted in yellow. These columns will be turned to match the original historic columns. The applicant seeks to install new balustrades shown in the light blue in the blue highlighted area. Balusters will be simple 2" by 2" and spaced 4 inches apart. The balustrade's overall height will be 36 inches. Brick and concrete stairs, as highlighted in green, will be the same location as the historic stairs. The new stairs will be constructed from general shell Cordoba brick with a knee wall and concrete cap. The stairs will be approximately 4 feet wide and match the foundation brick. The porch ceiling and railings will be painted to match the trim in Dove white. 8 ornamental wooden column brackets will be replaced with fiberglass ornamental column brackets. These new brackets will be 3 inches wide by 16.5 inches high by 12 1/8 inches deep. And they have a slightly different design from the historic brackets. The new brackets will be painted to match the trim. The north elevation will have 8 new windows installed on the first and second stories, one requiring a new window opening. On the south side elevation, 4 new windows will be installed on the first and second stories, all in existing window openings. New trim and windows will be painted to match also the remaining trim. The elevations provided by the applicant, as seen here, do not show a new window opening on the north that appears in the proposed plan. On the rear elevation, the existing colored glass window highlighted here in green will remain at the second story. A new door highlighted in red will then be installed in an existing opening matching the location from the 2001 photograph at the bottom right. The new door will be the same as the door installed along the front with a half light and 2 panels. A new one-story, 6-foot by 6-foot wood frame rear deck highlighted here in blue will be installed. The porch's staircase will feature will be oriented north to the exit out to finished grade. The handrails will be 36 feet high by 2 inches by 2-inch balustrade and will be spaced a maximum of 4 inches apart. The wood stairs will be approximately 4 inches wide. Staff notes that the first floor proposed window and existing window do not match. Staff notes that the submitted floor plan and submitted elevations do not coordinate. The design standards state that exterior alterations shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. Deteriorating historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. When it is not repairable, it shall be replaced to match original in dimensions and size and, where possible, materials. Design standards note that materials used in underpinning should complement the color and texture of the brick pier foundation piers. If a brick cannot be matched, stucco is recommended. Design standards state that front porches should be embellished only with those decorative elements that are keeping within character of the era of the building. While staff could not locate a recent approval of fiberglass brackets for contributing buildings, the board has in the past approved porch columns made from modern materials for contributing buildings. The proposed rear deck is in keeping with the design standards that will be located so the historic features of the building are not obscured. Staff would like to enter the case summary in its entirety into the record for tonight's proceedings.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff about the report?
I've got a question. Under replace the existing wood door, 2-panel door. It looks to be in good shape. Are they not planning to refinish that?
My understanding is that they're replacing it based on the information we were provided. I don't know the condition of the door. It could look one way and be a different way, as we all know, so.
Walked by there a lot, and today the workmen were there, but the door was so wide open, I couldn't, on the sidewalk, but trying to reaffirm to myself the door had some competency and life to it. And when I saw that replace the existing wood door, I thought, okay, thank you. I'll answer him.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We will now give the applicant an opportunity to provide additional evidence or answer questions.
We'll be here a while.
My name is Steve Goodson. I live in Loudon, Tennessee, and I'm representing the owner of this project. What can I tell you?
Can you tell us about the condition of that door?
Door's in very poor shape.
Okay.
And are you proposing, the drawing looks like it's an exact replica of that door. Are you having a new one made, or?
The drawing came from a factory. It's a wooden door that is available to the public, for residential houses. What was your question? Can I have one reproduced?
The rendering that shows it's that door that's on there. That's the question I had, to get some clarity on whether it was salvageable. And you just plan to come back with a milled door that's, can you describe the door to me?
Well, had it been my, druthers, I would have put a fiberglass door in there with stained glass, but I was told that that wouldn't probably be approved. So I went back and chose a wood door that's very similar to what's there and put a transom in the same way it was before.
Mr. Smith, if you look at attachment number 6, page 23 of the case summary, there is what the door is proposed to look like as a half-light 2-panel door.
23.
It's attachment 6, page 23, so it's like 5-6 pages from the end of the document.
Oh, mine's numbered. Oh, I see. Well, I'm sure you've studied it. I would, much better informed than I am, but I walk by there a lot when it's closed and secured. Obviously, those chicken stabs, chicken coop stabs you've got to get on.
Well, that's to keep the
porch,
homeless
but,
people.
Keeps, and the fence around it, but, they do some amazing things. It's just a shame to lose that door, but I hope it can be forwarded to the salvage company with Historic Wilmington, because I'm sure a good wood craftsman could make that door stunning. Could you talk about the chimney in your replacement, which I applaud, metal roof, and we're not having to beg you to
Well,
replace that
if you
roof,
approve
but-
the shingle one for the other one, then I would like to revise mine for a shingle roof. So I just want to point that out since y'all were talking about it, because it's directly next door to me to the left.
I know. Well, we know the direction we think that's going in, but I do
I know.
applaud your embracing putting on a metal roof. But can you talk about the chimney and what's the plan?
Well, there
for
is
that?
no chimney in this house. It was taken down before I foreclosed on the house.
Oh, there's not?
There is no chimney. There's no base to it. It does not exist.
Brickwork inside?
Nothing.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question, please. On the door that you submitted for the front door, the existing door, which is in bad condition, has horizontal panels, and you've selected a door that has vertical panels, which is totally different than what was originally with the house. And there would be some doors available with a horizontal panel similar to what is there. So why did you go to a vertical panel versus horizontal?
As I said, I originally had chosen a all fiberglass door and fiberglass structural unit around it with stained glass in it, because I felt that looked nicer and was an upgrade. And when I chose a wood door for it, I was kind of under a gun on time, so I went out and tried to find one that was close as possible. If I had more time, I may very well be able to find one that's closer to this existing one. I'm happy to do that.
Right, well, it's just so different from the original door. And to tag along with that question is, why do you want to change the original 1/1 window on the front there to a 2/2? I think that's what you were asking or proposing.
Sir, I really don't care. I did it because they would all match. If you would prefer to have a 1/1, I'm very, very happy to do that.
Well, usually we try to maintain that if you're going to replace it, you replace it with a similar type window as far as size and shape and configuration. So, okay.
Well, if you would like to make that a condition, I'll be happy to change it for you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'd just like to bring up the stained glass issue there, page 62. The standards 3.2, it says it is not appropriate to replace original clear glass with colored or stained glass unless it reflects the style of the building. I've seen many doors of this time period with a door with an element of stained glass. Just walk around the whole historic district. Are we just not allowing any stained glass in the front door?
I think we're just trying to go with what's originally there, and our best guess as to what was original is that door that's there with clear
Just plain
glass.
glass, plain Jane.
Right.
All right.
Well, the house is pretty plain Jane. I don't know if it would have had stained glass in the front, but who knows? But
Okay.
Okay.
When I heard that, I just want to check out the standards.
I think we've all been looking at this house for years, lamenting its condition, so I think this is good that something is coming along and getting it dried in and taken care of and painted and do the work.
But what you're saying is that you would be okay to keep it as a 101 and okay to try to locate a door that would have horizontal panels with the
Yeah, I'm happy to do
number matching, okay? And I'm
I'll
sure.
get as close as I can to it.
Right,
and then-
understand it, and staff could probably assist you with choosing that, so thank you.
I want to ask about the brackets also. These are going to be fiberglass. I thought that in new construction we could, but are we approving fiberglass elements like brackets?
So my understanding is that we have approved like fiberglass columns in the past, but we couldn't find anything that specified like brackets and decorative elements. As far as them being on like new construction versus historic, I don't have that information in front of me.
Was that in your research, is that what you came up with? That you could find
I
a
was
source?
unable to find wood ones that were similar to what's there, but I was able to find the ones out of fiberglass.
Ready-made.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Also related to the door, if you legacy architectural salvage, and one, I hope they get the door. If we'll add that as a condition that any materials taken from the house be donated to them, but they may have a door in their inventory, or go online, some other salvage areas, because it really will help keep the house in its period, with the appropriate door.
We're going to open up the evidentiary portion to members of the public, if anyone has any comments.
Travis Gilbert, 211 Orange Street, Historic Wilmington Foundation. I just wanted to echo Commissioner Smith, our resource coordinator, took a look at the property, and there might be some salvage opportunities, some of the windows, the doors, some of the siding that can't be, it seems like they're replacing all the windows. Some of those may or may not be able to be usable, but we can certainly use them. So if that were added as a condition, we'd be very grateful, and I'll connect with the applicant shortly. Thank you.
All right, that closes the evidentiary portion, and we're going to have now open up the commissioner deliberation.
So as far as the door, I think if you go to any, decent lumber yard or window and door center, they can, give them a spec of what you want. You want a horizontally oriented door panel, and they can get those things, or there's Dallas Mill working at it. I think having that as a condition is pretty simple. It takes just a little bit more research to find it, but it can be found. It's certainly not out of the realm of possibilities to easily find that, actually. That was the only thing I had to comment on.
Well, the only thing with these, again, I would think a mill company could reproduce those small brackets if we, because they're commercially available, and fiberglass, that we're going to start voting on fiberglass ornamentation on houses. Though I do think the top of St. James, they went with fiberglass when they replaced, the top of that tower above, those fenestrations they have there, there are 4 of them, I think they were fiberglass. But, just we need to clarify that other applicants that maybe come through that want to.
Are those existing brackets, are they all like completely rotted through? Can they just be salvaged, epoxied, and repaired? Right.
There's some that are salvageable.
Sir, I'm sorry, you're going to have to come up to the microphone. It can't be recorded without being at the microphone. Thank you.
As I was saying, I didn't pull out the little pieces that are on the leftover post. They're up underneath the house right now. I don't know the condition of them. The posts themselves are severely rotted.
Right. You know, they are original to the house and, you know, and appropriate for the size of the dwelling. I mean, some of the brackets are really huge, you know, on bigger houses, but a mill company could produce those for you in wood. I appreciate finding something, but we, you know, our mission is to go back with wood and rather than synthetic materials in older homes. Would you be agreeable to exploring and do, because you only need 2, 4, 6, about 10, 8 or 10, depending on, that's replacing all of them. And it did seem that the few that I saw on the house were salvageable. Would you be agreeable to?
Well, I can look into it and see if I can find somebody to reproduce them.
Right. Well, they, you know, it probably would take duplicating them.
I mean, if I take one of them and say, can you duplicate this?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Then I'm willing to try that and explore it.
Okay.
Companies in town that could do that, and Historic Wilmington Foundation has a preservation resources network. They have some resources, so they might be able to direct you to some millwork companies in town that do custom reproductions, and they could probably repair the ones that need repair and build a handful of others based on the existing that you have.
Okay, I'm willing to look into it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Then would someone like to make a motion? I think we have to add some of the conditions. That I know one was the front window remaining 1/1, and the front door to try to obtain one that more closely resembles the horizontal panels on the existing door. And then the third condition was to attempt to replace the corbels with wooden
Post brackets.
brackets. Does someone want to make the motion?
I
now?
move to approve with conditions the request of exterior alterations, exterior restoration, and painting at 509 South Fifth Avenue, and to adopt the proposed findings of facts. Details are shown on the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narratives. Statements contained in the application and the supplemental materials. The statements made in the meeting are part of the request unless otherwise noted. This motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application, submittals, testimony, staff reports, including the finding of facts. The following conditions shall apply to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in the staff report 1 to 15. Item 16, the front window remain a 1/1. Item 17, the door will replicate as much as possible the current door with horizontal panels. Item 18, the post brackets will be made of wood and replicated as close as possible by a milling shop. The proposed request with conditions does comply with the Wilmington design standards for the historic district and landmarks, is compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic building and the historic district in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic district residential as a whole. Applicable design standards, 1.6 Secretary of the Interior standards, standards 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9. 2.6 decks and swimming pools, standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 3.1 roof standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9. 3.2 windows and doors standards 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 13. 3.3 masonry stone standards 1, 2, 4, and 5. 3.4 underpinning standards 1, 2, and 3. 3.5 exterior walls and decorative woodwork standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. 3.6 porches and entrances standards 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. 3.8 exterior color standards 1, 2, 3, and 5. 3.10 health and safety code requirements standard 1 and 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And we'll take a quick break and return for the last three items. like the next one. The plans are lovely.
Here, what are we doing? Where am I? Things up here.
By the time we leave. since-
Look out. Oh, I know. Check it out.
Yeah, I am too. Very glad to see it.
Okay.
Dinner at the George tonight. People outside at 6:30, so I guess they could accommodate them to run inside.
I was glad the George reopened under new ownership.
Have you
know.
been since they opened?
I haven't. No, yeah, we have. Yeah, we did. We went there and we ate outside. It was okay. I mean, I don't remember it as being good or bad, you know, but I like the place, and I know George, you know, and he has the little condo in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, over there. And he's an engineer. When he came down and first did the George and built it, I was on the HPC then, and he had to come in and get it approved and all that. And then at the very end, I mean, he tried to do everything right. I mean, just so nice. I mean, from the building to everything. And so then he came in and they built the little railing and the deck over there. And he put these decorative balls on there, they look like little cannonballs. I don't know if you remember that. And he went, HBC came back and said, you got to take those things off of there, man. And he's going, you know how much I paid for this? You know, I mean, we don't consider money. Big one. The boat thing is, boat stands would break out another 1,000. Well, you know,
And you know, I put it before we went to Italy. I took it to them and said, you know, I want to do a seasonal tune-up.
Ready to jump back in again?
Oh, that's $15.
Agenda item number 5.
They called
15 to 17 South Water Street, an infill project.
All right. This is 115 South Water Street. The applicant proposes to construct a 6-story mixed-use infill development. Originally, the site was home to the Ice House. The site is bounded by Mooters Alley and Potts Alley. According to map research, a 3-story masonry building along Mooters Alley had a series of wood frame stables and accessory buildings abutting it in 1884. The 1884 Sanborn maps note the building is an ice house with a tin roof and a wooden iceway attached to the west side of the building leading down to the riverfront. Research indicates that the building may have been built as early as 1845 by Paul Repeton, a Baptist minister. The next 20 years, the building saw a series of expansions and served as a working ice house until sometime between 1889 and 1893, when it became a fish and oyster market and wholesale business. Sometime in the mid-1940s, according to historian Beverly Tedderton, the building was heavily altered due to fire, losing a story but adding a 1-story building to the north, creating a 2-story structure along Mooters Alley and a 1-story structure parallel to the riverfront. The door opening that originally led to the iceway remained intact during the alterations. In 1990, the 2-story brick building and 1-story addition became a series of shops and a restaurant and bar. In 2004, the buildings were demolished. The proposed project is on the east side of water between Mooters and Potts Alleys. The subject is considered a contributing resource in the Central Business District and the Historic District Overlay. The Central Business District Historic District Overlay was established in April of 1979, and only that which can be seen from the public right-of-way, excluding alleys, is subject to design review. The applicant seeks to build a mixed-use 6-story with parking infill development. The project will be approximately 79,455 square feet of enclosed space. Here you can see 2 renderings along Water Street, and then the bottom shows along Mooter's Alley. The building will have approximately 2,240 square feet of enclosed commercial ground floor space, shown here in gray. There will be 49 parking spaces, and the footprint will be approximately 14,431 square feet. There will be 61 total apartments on floors 3 through 6. The 6th floor will be set back approximately 16 feet from the outer edge of the 5th floor along the west and north and south facades, and 5 feet from the rear east facade. All elevations will feature brick and lap siding facades. Here, the applicant submitted details of the decorative brick and cast stone work planned along the 1st and 2nd stories. Also, this slide is an example submitted by the applicant of the type and style of brick, stone, and siding planned for the project. The 1st ground and 2nd story stories will all have facades of Watsontown brick and Waverly Mills. The 3rd through 6th stories will be clad in 6-inch smooth face hardy plank board lap siding painted Sherwin-Williams summer white. Trim on these floors will be hardy plank board painted Sherwin-Williams twinkle. The details will also feature manufactured stone that will be painted twinkle to match the trim. 3rd through 6th stories along Water Street will have full balconies. The balcony railings will be 40 inches tall with 1-inch rails and made of anodized aluminum painted dark bronze. The full balconies will also feature dark bronze aluminum bracket supports. 3rd through 6th stories along Mooter's Alley, Potts Alley, and the east facades will have Juliet balconies. These Juliet balconies will have railings that match the full balconies, as you can see in the images. Also here, you'll see on the right, there's an example of Juliet balconies along South Front Street that was provided by the applicant. 3rd through 6th stories will have a total of 169 windows on all facades. All upper story windows will be ply-gem vinyl windows of 1,110 series, single hung 2/2 windows painted dark bronze. 3rd through 6th stories will have a total of 42 paired balcony doors on all facades. All balcony doors will be ply-gem composite wood 200 series center hung double doors, each with 8 lights and painted to match the windows. The overall height of the infill development will be 60 feet with an elevator shaft that rises approximately 5 feet from the 6th story along the northwestern corner. Units on the 6th story will have roof terraces, and the terraces will be defined by a 24-inch wall with an 18-inch glass railing on top. The overall height of the terrace walls will be 42 inches. Staff notes that 4 of the 8 directly adjacent properties are listed as contributing in the National Register report. This map in green shows contributing buildings, and red are non-contributing according to the National Register report. Design standards note new commercial construction is encouraged to be a product of its own time. Design standards note that new commercial construction should create a visual distinction between the old and the new while maintaining a respect for the character of the adjacent historic buildings in the block and district. Design standards note new commercial construction should be compatible with nearby historic buildings in terms of massing, scale, height, form, size, material, proportion, fenestration, and roof form. Design standards note new commercial construction should be compatible with the historic district as a whole in accordance with the land development code in regard to height. Design standards note materials on new construction, commercial construction should be compatible with adjacent structures in respect to scale, pattern, details, texture, finish, and color. Design standards note that buildings should be considered within the context of the block, streetscape, and the historic district as a whole. Staff would like to enter the case summary into its entirety for the record of tonight's proceedings. Sorry.
I have two questions. One is, you said there were 49 parking spaces?
Yes,
Is that all for this whole building?
that's what I was given, yes.
So the apartments, they'll be parking in the street somewhere? And the
Maybe
second-
not, they don't own a car.
Excuse me?
Maybe they don't own a car. There's 61 apartments and 49 parking spaces, that is correct.
And then there's the commercial part.
And then there's the commercial along, which is part of the zoning requirement for the area, yes.
And the other question is, if it's supposed to be compatible with height, it's a lot taller than anything around it, right?
It is 6 stories, and zoning allows up to 6 feet. There are in the direct block around it, there are buildings that are 3 to 4 stories, and then in the district as a whole, there are buildings that go up to 8 stories in height.
What they're presenting to us does meet the standards in terms of, I remember the plan along that corridor where they tried not to create a canyon. So you went along Water Street and didn't see anything but buildings on either side. But in terms of height, it meets all the standards from planning and
it fits within the zoning heights, yes. And the zoning committees are reviewing other zoning concerns, but that's not for us to worry about.
Thank you.
And they're not required to have off-street parking?
And historic districts are not required to have off-street, have any parking, or there are no parking requirements.
And this is also in the CBD, and the CBD is exempt from parking requirements. That's with the old code as well as the newly enacted land development code.
Okay, if the applicant would like to come forward to provide evidence or answer questions, please state your name and address.
Madam Chair, committee, thank you. Staff, thank you. My name is Clark Hipp. I'm the architect representing the owner on this piece of property. Our firm is Hipp Architecture and Development, 228 North Front Street here in Wilmington. The design you have presented before you is for the future owner of this piece of property. We are working for that future owner with the approval of the current property owner. So again, as mentioned, as Ms. Baldwin mentioned, existing residential, commercial. This is mainly a residential structure. It's a multifamily structure with some commercial on the ground floor. There was a mention of about 2,800 square feet of commercial space. A significant portion of that will be ground floor space for the residential. That'll have a director's office. It'll have mail room, that sort of thing. So not all of that is commercial. The main commercial space is at the corner of Mooters Alley and South Water Street, and that's to be about 900 square feet. So they're expecting a small walk-up type retail operation, not an office or something of that nature. So regarding the height, the building is 60 feet as designed, but we've done things to try to mitigate the overall sense of height. The W. Brooks building downtown is roughly 50 feet tall. The Jacoby warehouse, which is just north, both of which are just north of this property, is roughly 50 feet tall, and it has a tower on it that is even taller than that. I don't know if that was an elevator tower or something, but there is a tower that fronts right on Water Street that is taller. The building just to the north, which I believe is called River Watch Riverwatch condominiums, and you can see it in this image, just to the north is 45 feet tall. To the south, there's the Old City Market, which I understand, is no longer considered a contributing structure. Something I read recently suggested that that designation had been removed. But further down from that is the Chandler's Watch, I believe, is a three-story building, but it's raised about 6 feet off Water Street, so it has about a 50-foot presence, even though it's only 3 stories. So in our design, we attempted to mitigate the sense of height by using materials, and the brick masonry that we use only goes up to about 38 feet, and the front of the building that immediately faces Water Street is right at 50 feet, and then we set back the upper floor, as mentioned, about 16 feet, so that that portion is at the 60-foot level. So immediately facing Water Street or immediately along Water Street is 50 feet, and then the 60-foot portion is 16 feet back from that elevation. The other thing that we attempted to do is we had attempted to put a lot of glass along Water Street. We broke up. We didn't take the brick 38 feet all the way across the building. We raised it at the corners and lowered it in the middle to attempt to try to break up some of the facade and not have it so massive up against the street. The materials, as mentioned, the materials were all found within the neighboring buildings, the masonry, the lap siding, the storefront is fairly typical in this area. The detailing of the brick is taken directly from the building that is at 114 South Front Street, and there was a picture of it. I apologize, I don't have any picture. There it is. So in the lower middle, that green, that detailing, that building is 114 South Front Street, which is just immediately behind our proposed construction. So again, we meet to the question about the parking. There is no parking requirement in the CBD. There are many buildings built, especially multifamily buildings, that don't have parking. This one attempted to get as much parking as possible with a structured deck that will allow a certain amount of parking on the ground level and then ramp up to a second level for parking. The owners anticipate that parking will be adequate if you include the parking that's adjacent with the city parking decks and some of the surface parking that the city has. There were some conditions that were added in the application by staff. None of those were unreasonable to us, and we're certainly willing to address any conditions that might be placed on this application. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
You state that there are going to be mostly 1 and 2 bedrooms. I kind of went up looking at plan after plan. I just saw 1 bedroom, 1 bedroom. Are the 2 up on the top, or how are you incorporating the 2 bedrooms in the unit?
2 bedrooms are on the corners on each floor. The 2 bedrooms are on the corners, and the 1 bedrooms are kind of mixed in between. On the upper floor, we had one. I have to remember. On the upper floor, we had more 2 bedrooms. So we had 6 2 bedrooms on the upper floor, and on floors 2, 3, 4, and 5, we had 2 bedrooms on the corners and 1 2 bedroom in what we're calling the middle of the horseshoe. All the rest were 1 bedrooms.
Well, I appreciate you including the elements that you drew from surrounding buildings to tie it into your plan. I know this is nothing that we will vote on. It's not something part of our preview, but I know trying to stay under the height restriction, but any about water along Water Street during storms and flooding?
So yes, we will have to address flooding. We anticipate using flood prevention devices similar to what River Place used, which are panels that there's a track in the jam, and you place, you hand place these devices. It was recently approved in River Place.
Right.
Sir, I have a question. On the, it looks like, what are you going to call it, the penthouse up on the roof there, there's patio areas coming out. Is there going to be any plant material, potted shrubs or anything out there?
We do not anticipate having any, anything heavy like a tree or anything like that. There might be pots that someone could place. We anticipate a bench to kind of define the deck or the terrace that's from each unit. And there might be plants, but we do not anticipate doing any built-in planters, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open the evidentiary portion to members of the public. No comments. All right, we'll close the evidentiary portion and open commissioner deliberation. You want to make a motion then?
Jump in, Ron.
I wanted to make a comment. Thank you, Clark, for the nice presentation, too. And I've been involved with this property on the HBC for many years, ever since all the issues. I was on the HBC back then when they tore down the ice house and all the dilemma, that came from that. And with due respect to Clark, I just find the massing of this building to be too massive for its location. We're talking of a 6-story building, and I know 6 stories is allowed in the district, but we also have to look at the congruity of the block that it's in, and I know that's always, you know, what is it congruous with? And we argue and discuss this question all the time. I know the owner has to go in and make a certain return on his investment. The land's been empty for a long time, but I just feel like that particularly on Water Street, this building is going to be so massive. It's going to block out views from other people that are up on, up on Front Street. And even though the architecture is nice, it seems to fit in, the materials are well chosen. I just have an issue with the massing and the sheer size of the building. It seems too much for me for that particular site, and but that's just my opinion. And you know, I guess the driveway is going to be for the garage, or the parking area is going to be off. Is that Mutter's Alley that is coming off of? Okay. And if you've been down Mutter's Alley, it's a very narrow one-way connector, if you will. And there is some parking with the building next door, off-street parking off of the street. And I just feel like it's going to be adding more to the problems downtown and not helping the problems as far as traffic, as far as congestion and massing. So, okay.
I agree.
Thank you. Yeah.
I agree with you, Ron. This is an issue that came up on the hotel on 2nd Street, and because we have not gotten to the guidelines, which I proposed 3 years ago, that we define congruity more fully in the guidelines so that we can deal with that block per block. If there is a height in the CBD, if there's any building that height, they'll override us. So we have no choice in that issue. It has to be because there's a building of that height in the CBD, it's allowed. And that was a case. There was a case. It was a lawsuit. It was a lawsuit.
Well, I realize that, and there was a lawsuit over the ice house, and there've been lawsuits, that's why we have attorneys, so, I just feel like that, even if it's overturned, or if the people want to go to the Board of Adjustment to deal with this, I just feel like we have some sort of moral responsibility also, even though it may not be in writing, or to help protect our city and what it is fast becoming. And even though they're within the guidelines, but again, that congruity issue, do we look at the north? I mean, within that district, we've got a wide variety of
Well, that's the whole case relied on the fact that if you're in that district and you don't define congruity any more specifically, if there's some other building in the district that is that height, then it's allowed.
And if I can just
Melissa can speak to that.
Yes. State Statute 160D 947, that is where we get the requirement that congruity be looked at in the district as a whole. So if you try to change the standards to narrow that definition, you wouldn't be allowed to. That's something that City Council has the authority to do. So say, for example, City Council came in and said, we want the HDO in the CBD to have a step down, like little sub-district, something like that. That is something that City Council could do if they so chose. We do not have the authority to just define congruity beyond what's allowed by state statute, and that includes looking at the entire district as a whole.
Propose an amendment to the guidelines that would go before City Council.
The amendment to the guidelines will not trump state statute.
No, I understand that. I mean, if we chose that we wanted to do that and propose it, and it would go before City Council to decide whether they would accept that or not.
If City Council decided to amend what districts are out there and narrow that the districts, make more or make subcategories of districts, that would comply with state statute, yes. But if they just come in and say, try to define congruity more than what is already defined in state statute and case law, City Council doesn't have that authority either.
So what you're saying, according to state statute, anything within that particular designated district, regardless of how big it may be, square miles or however you want to figure that. So everything in there has to meet the same rule of congruity within that entire area?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Did that change from when it came up 3 years ago with the new planning code?
No, it did not. Because again, it's state statute, and that statute's been consistent.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, in that case, then, we should do a motion.
I move to approve with conditions, let me take my glasses off, with conditions the request for a new infill development at 115 to 117 South Water Street and to adopt the proposed findings of fact. Details are shown in the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement contained in the application, and supplemental materials and statements made at this meeting are part of the request unless otherwise noted. This motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including the finding of facts. The following conditions shall be applied to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in the staff report 1 to 19. The proposed request with conditions does comply with the Wilmington Design Standards for historic districts and landmarks, is compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic building in the historic district in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic district residential as a whole. Applicable design standards, 1.6 Secretary of the Interior Standards, standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, and 10. 2.2 Public Right-of-Way, standards 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 2.4 Walkways, driveways, and off-street parking, standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2.7 Residential signs, standards 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Lighting, standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 2.9 Archaeology, standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3.1 Roof, standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9. 3.2 Windows and Doors, standards 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13. 3.3 Masonry Stone, standards 1, 2, 4, 5. 3.7 Architectural Metal, standards 5. 3.8 Exterior Color, standards 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 3.9 Utilities and Energy Retrofit, standards 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 3.10 Health and Safety Code Requirements Standards 1, 2, 3, 4. 4.2 New Construction Infill Standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 5.4 New Commercial Construction Infill Standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
No.
The motion carries.
Ms. Hoffman, I have a question. What is the expiration date on a COA these days? Mr. Hipp here mentioned.
1 year, I believe. 12 months. Mhm.
So Mr. Hipp mentioned a new owner, so they would have to begin project within 12 months?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I've noticed other commercial projects we've approved and they've not budged. Okay, thank you.
So does this approval follow is this transferred by deed, this approval
This is-
process?
Yes, sir. It's based on the site, not the owner.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks.
Okay, the number 6 agenda item, 505 Dock Street, new construction with fence.
All right. 505 Dock Street. The applicant seeks to construct a new two-story, 1,818 square foot detached single-family dwelling on a 2,500 square foot lot and install a 6-foot tall wooden fence. The subject property is a vacant lot. Prior to January of 1968, a building addressed 505 Dock was approved to be removed from the lot without a replacement. In 1974, the lot was approved to be used as a parking lot for a local law firm. The subject lot is located on the north side of Dock Street between South 5th Avenue and South 6th Street. The subject property is a non-contributing resource in the historic district. Revisions to all facades of a building in the site are subject to design review in this district. The applicant seeks to construct a new two-story single-family dwelling on the current vacant lot. The proposed dwelling will be 24 feet wide by 53 feet deep, including front and rear porches. All siding will be hardy plank, 8.5-inch wide planks with 6-inch exposure, painted Sherwin-Williams Santorini blue. All trim will be 4-inch pressure-treated wood, painted Sherwin-Williams pure white. All windows, unless otherwise noted, will be gin-weld vinyl, single-hung, 1/1 windows, measuring 2 feet 8 inches by 5 inches in height and painted to match the trim. The proposed foundation will vary with grade and will be approximately 24 inches at its tallest point. The foundation along the front elevation, highlighted here in yellow, will be concrete block covered with a Spalding Tudor clay bricks. The remaining foundation will be concrete block covered with a smooth cement coating. The proposed dwelling will have a gable roof with a hipped roof, front porch roof, and a shed roof at the rear porch. The roofs will all be clad in CertainTeed landmark architectural shingles in moire black with no ridge vent. The fascias will be 8-inch pressure-treated wood painted pure white. The proposed south facade features a 3-bay wide 2-story porch design. The main entry will be a Therma-Tru Smooth Star Craftsman Light 2-panel shaker, 3/4 flush glazed fiberglass door, stained Minwax special walnut. The front gable will feature a 24 wide by 24 long decorative louvered vent, and the entry steps will be 6 feet wide, constructed out of Tudor clay brick to match the foundation. The 2-story front porch will have a total of 8-inch square columns with 1-inch by 4-inch capitals and 1-inch by 6-inch bases painted to match the trim. The porch railings will be 2-inch by 2-inch pickets with 2-inch by 4-inch base rail and a 2-inch by 6-inch cap rail painted to match the trim. The porch flooring will be concrete. The second-story porch flooring will be painted with hydrostop rubber membrane to the color of desert sand. The second-story porch will have one Therma-Tru Smooth full light glazed fiberglass exterior door painted to match the trim. The proposed front facade will have 4 operable windows. The staff would like to note that 2 corrections to the case summary. The front facade is set back 12 feet, not 9 as stated in the case summary. And this includes the 5 feet to the porch plus another 7 to the house. The second correction is that the porch ceilings will be 4 inches by 8 inch beadboard, not the listed 1 inch by 6 inch tongue and groove beadboard, but it will still be stained special walnut. The proposed east and west facades will have both operable and fixed vinyl windows. The east elevation will have 7 operable windows on the second story, and it will have 1 rectangular fixed vinyl window, as shown here, 3 foot wide by 1 foot wide. After the case summary, the west elevation will have 4 operable windows and 1 fixed windows. After the case summary was published, staff was provided the material spec sheet for the east elevation rectangular fixed windows and the west elevation smaller double hung window, as you can see here. The rectangular 36 inch by 24 inch fixed window will be vinyl with no light pattern. The smaller double hung vinyl window will be 35 inches by 24 inches high with a 1/1 sash. The proposed rear facade features a 1-story porch with 6 feet wide entry steps constructed out of Tudor clay brick to match the foundation. The rear entry door will be Therma-Tru Smooth Star full light glazed fiberglass exterior door painted to match the trim. The proposed rear facade will have 4 windows. The rear 1-story porch will have 3 8-inch square columns with 1 inch by 4 inch capitals and 1 inch by 6 inch bases and a shed roof. The porch ceiling will be stained special walnut and will have the same material, the 4 inch by 8 inch beadboard as previously mentioned. The porch columns and railings will be painted to match, and the porch flooring will be concrete with a row-lock edge constructed from Spalding Tudor clay brick. The applicant seeks to modify the existing landscaping in the rear yard as highlighted in green will be sodded and brown bark mulch will be placed in the red highlighted areas. The HVAC equipment will be located at the east side of the building and will be screened from the right-of-way by a 6-foot fence. The garbage pad outlined in blue will be located at the rear northwest corner of the building and will be screened from the right-of-way by a 4-foot wide screen designed to match the proposed fence. The front yard will feature camellias and linarope, and the tree located in the public right-of-way is approved by Urban Forestry for removal. The applicant seeks to construct off-street parking to the west side of the proposed dwelling. The proposed off-street parking is highlighted here in blue and is constructed of concrete runners. The pink outlines represent the location of a 6-foot-tall shadow box fence with rail caps. The proposed fence would have 2 6-foot-tall gates on the east and west sides of the property, and the finished side would face Dock Street. The design guidelines do recommend to construct new fences at a height no greater than 4 feet when located in the front yard up to the front corner of the house. The design guidelines state that new walkways, driveways, and off-street parking areas should be located so that significant site features, including topography, mature trees are retained. Off-site parking should be designed to be off-street parking should be designed to be unobtrusively located in the rear or side yards and visually screened from the street when appropriate. Design standards state that new mechanical equipment and utilities, such as heating and air conditioning units, should be located in non-conspicuous locations and screened where possible. Design standards note new construction is encouraged to be a product of its own time and should create a visual distinction between old and new while maintaining respect for the character and context of the adjacent historic buildings, blocks, streetscape, and district. This includes being compatible with nearby historic buildings in terms of massing, scale, height, form, size, materials, proportion, fenestration, and roof form. Materials on new construction should be compatible with adjacent structures with respect to scale, pattern, details, texture, finish, and color. Design standards note new construction should be compatible with the historic district as a whole and in accordance with the land development code in regard to height. Staff would like to enter the case summary in its entirety into the record in tonight's hearing at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for regarding the staff report?
We did some work with this neighboring property at 509 Dock Street last year, and that front, we deliberated on the front setback a little bit. Is that why this was changed from 5 to?
It wasn't changed when the applicant submitted it to us. It was a on staff's part. We miscalculated.
But you said the front setback was what again?
It's 12 total from the front facade, and then the porch itself is, I think, 5, so it comes in like that. So it comes towards the street another 5 feet, maybe 7.
Do you know how that relates to the house that they're have underway next door that we approved last year? Do you know what that setback was? Is it the same or close?
I think it's close. I don't have it directly offhand, but
Okay.
based on my memory, it is very close, if not the same.
Okay.
Can you talk to me about the fence to the east side of the property? I see a 6-foot height wooden fence, but it's not very far setback. Is there a 3-foot gate? How is, I don't really understand that.
So according to this drawing, there's a 3-foot gate between the house and the side of the fence, and the fence runs along the property line there to the east, and then that is a 6-foot tall fence. But I think the gate is just 3 feet wide, but it's 6 feet in height, is my interpretation of that. So it reads all as one fence all the way around, but it's 3 feet wide.
I see. So it's going to be 6 from where it starts.
Yes, sir, that pink line there, which is 6 feet back from the edge of the front of the house.
Tell you, I know that front corner, back corner, and everything seems nebulous between there, and these 6-foot fences are just about coming right up to the front of the house. They're so visible and fort-like. I just, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Mr. Smith. I thought there was if it was a 6-foot fence, it had to be in the back of the house, which would put it nearer to that air conditioning unit instead of coming all the way out to the front.
My understanding is design standards, design guidelines do recommend to construct new fences at a height no greater than 4 feet when located in the front yard up to the front corner of the house. So this one is set back 6 feet from the front corner of the house.
Okay.
I believe we had this issue in discussion before you were here. There was an after-the-fact fence put on 6th Street. I don't remember the exact address. And there was some discussion there because it was kind of ambiguous between the front corner and the back corner of the house, like where does 4 end and 6 begin? And I thought there was going to be some attempt to set a policy on that, but I don't recall that ever being done. And again, that was before you came along.
I don't know anything about that, so I cannot even make a comment, sorry.
Okay, thanks.
6-foot fence on 6.
We didn't approve the part of it, but I don't think, maybe Ms. Hoffman remembers this, but I do not believe we actually had a defined anything on that it was ambiguous because we weren't sure where 4 and 6 came, and there was going to be an attempt, I'm assuming by staff, to draw up some policy and be approved on that.
I remember the conversation.
Thank you.
And the standards, the issue is because the standards talk about 4 feet in the front yard
Right.
to the front corner, and then they talk about 6 feet in the back, in the rear corner.
Correct.
And there's nothing in there about
Correct.
what happens in the middle. Yes, that would have been, and when we say staff, I mean planning staff, but we've had a lot of turnover since we had that
Understand.
conversation. I don't recall how that particular case came out. For some reason, I'm not sure. I don't want to misspeak.
No, I think they had modified part of the front of the fence, not the front, but on the side. But overall, I don't believe we made them do anything else, as I recall, but it's been a long time. But again, I'm just saying that I think that needs to be looked at again and decided, where does 4 end and where does 6 begin? Halfway down the house, or, some standard, so when these issues come up, we would have something defined.
Just for historical reference, I'm again looking at 509 Dock Street next door that was approved last year. The fence is approved for a height limited to 4 feet for a depth of 19 feet from the front property line. And then from a depth of 19 feet to the rear property line, fence height shall be limited to 6 feet. And I don't know what the depth of the porch is, but it looks like we're looking at something similar to that right now.
Yeah,
6 and, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the front facade, not including the porch, is at 12, so that would be another 6 feet back from 12, so 18
So
feet.
maybe we're looking at 18 as opposed to 19, but.
Is the applicant that, since it's the same?
I have one more fence question.
Okay.
The gates, 6 foot, that's quite a high gate. Now, this is a shadow box fence, correct, what's being applied for?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, okay, so
Yes.
I don't believe you have a shadow box gate, so then the gate would be board on board? I mean, how does this work?
I only know what was given to me. I don't
Okay,
know how
perhaps
the
we need
fence
to
is
see the
built.
applicant on
Yeah.
this. Okay,
Let's ask the
thank you.
applicant. Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, so if the applicant would step forward and state your name and address, and we have all sorts of questions for you.
Be prepared.
Do I have to be sworn in? I wasn't here when. No. And
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Libby Beccarino. I'm with Cove Neck Holdings. I'm the applicant.
And my name is Nicholas Beccarino. I'm the builder with Shelter Rock Builders.
I'll address that fence thing. It was, when I got the house next door to it approved, I think Ivy was the planner at the time. It was always my opinion that the 6-foot fence could only go a certain distance, and that it was always, unless you were to the rear of the house, it was always a 4-foot gate. Well, she corrected me and said that, and that's how this all began. So on 509 Dock, the house as you're facing to the right of it, I do have a 6-foot fence that is like 18 to 19 feet from the right-of-way, and it has a 6-foot gate. And I'm kind of happy about that, because the neighbor next door, who is a very nice person, and a fence company to boot, has a really messy yard, so, to put it nicely. And so the 6-foot fence on that side, I'm okay with that. On this property, I've been looking at this for a while. I want to make a proposal to push that fence back. So instead of it being 18 feet off the property line, off the right-of-way, I'd like to propose to make it 35 feet, which would put it right in front of that AC unit. And then at that AC unit, maybe give me 3 feet off of that AC unit. And then I would put a 4-foot gate there rather than a 6-foot gate, because I think that's really the way it should look. Okay, that's one proposal I have. The other is I'd like to make a change to the trash area. And this is an oversight on my part. I just didn't look at it carefully enough. I'd like to move that trash back to the left corner of the property, the left-hand corner of the property. Just put a little pervious slab there. And then move my driveway runners all the way back to that 6-foot gate, which is appropriate because it lines up with the rear of the house, the 6-foot gate. And then I can do away with those trash screens. That's okay with the committee. I had a couple of little housekeeping things. First of all, I want to thank the staff. They did really good, prompt and efficient response to my application. But the Hardy siding, they have it at 8 1/4. It's 7 1/4, and it really doesn't matter. But and the exposure is still 6 inches.
Libby, is this setback the same as the setback on the other house?
Yes, it is. It's 5 foot. And do you want me to get into the whole setback thing, or do I not have to? Okay. And then the porch ceilings, she said 4-inch by 8-inch, but she meant 4 foot by 8 foot beadboard on all the porch ceilings. And they're going to be painted, you know, Carolina blue or something like that, which is appropriate. Let's see if I have anything else here. Height of the foundation. They have it at 24 inches. But that would put my porch at 20 inches because the porch is 4 feet lower. So I like to make it a maximum of 30 inches for the house. The entire corner of Dock and Fifth slightly has a tilt from, as you're going towards Fifth Avenue, it slants more in that direction. So I'm trying to make all these houses look kind of even on the block face. I only have 3 houses that are built there, but I'm trying to, you know, make it look appropriate. So if we could make that 30 inches and I can make my front porch and either 24 or 28 inches, whichever I decide to do, it gives me a little flexibility when I'm laying out the foundation. That's all I have. I can answer any other questions, I hope.
This is a question. Why shadow box?
I put it all over the.
Yeah.
I put it all. I mean, do you have a picture of it? Because sometimes I think people don't realize what shadow box actually looks like.
Oh, I know what it looks like, but I mean, board on board, I think is a little more historic, but it's a new house, so I guess it's okay. It's just, it's one of my pet peeves on these shadow box fences. They're a little too
it's
modern.
practically the most expensive fence I could build there, other than a brick wall. Seriously, so it's not like I'm trying to cheat on,
use more material
on expense.
than you would on a board on board. You use more material on a shadow box than a board on board,
Yes.
more board feet, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
And it matches the house next door that I already got approved. So,
One more question. You said 3 houses. Aren't there 4 lots on that?
yes, there are 4 lots. I don't no longer own the lot at the corner of.
Oh, so you don't
Fifth.
own that lot?
No, I don't.
Okay. I thought you owned the whole, okay.
Well, I did at one time. I sold that lot.
Okay.
And the reason why I sold it, I'll be perfectly frank with you, is that it's going to be a pain in the ass to build on it because it has those 2 live oak trees on it. And when I cut this up into 4 lots, I purposely made the first lot at the corner of 5th and Dock 51 or 53 feet, the rest of them are 35, so that if somebody wants to build a house on it, they could carve a house in there without disturbing those oak trees, because they need to stay as they are. I mean, you could prune them back a little bit,
Yeah.
but, you know.
Well, if you noticed in an earlier thing, I'm kind of into trees. So, yeah, I know
Yeah.
where those trees are.
Oh,
I know
no,
what
no,
they look like. So,
I'm into
yeah.
trees too, so, you know.
Okay.
You know, unless they're in my driveway, like I have a dead one on this property that needs to be removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you. I will open up for the evidentiary portion. And we will close the evidentiary portion and go to commissioner deliberation.
Well, I do appreciate the fact that the applicant's willing to drop the fence back. you know, it's not something we can hammer out or decide tonight, but, you know, we really, in some sense, the district is beginning to look like suburban houses that are small and tight, and they've got stockade fence after stockade fence after stockade fence, and it's just not congruent and pleasing or anything. Right up to street corners, which often the ones that come before us, particularly because if it is on a corner lot, then it really needs our approval. And the one that was approved on 7th Street, Dock and 7th, the rear part of it looks like a fort. It's right on the sidewalk. And you can't even see the house behind it when you turn the corner and start walking up, except the upper portion. We've got to decide what it's going to be, but I do appreciate the applicant dropping back and making the streetscape a little more pleasant.
I agree. I like the proposed changes. I think it's going to open up the property from the street view.
I think those are good. I'm just wondering, his comment about the house next door has a shadow box, and then it's, I mean, wouldn't it maybe, in a sense, what Mike is saying, break it up a little if you didn't have the same exact style of fence, bing, all the way down the street? I mean, you know.
Could somebody make a motion?
I move to approve.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to real quick review the extra conditions that will be corrected, just to make sure that I'm clear. So we're going to push the fence and the gate back to 35 feet from the street or from the edge of the house? From the street? Okay, cool. And then we're going to put driveway runners all the way to the back edge of the house and move that to where the fence and gate currently are, and then remove that screen and move the trash pad to the northeast corner, west corner.
Northwest corner.
And the gate that's going on the east side, the gate's not going to be 6 feet, it's going to be 4 feet. The one in front of the air conditioning unit.
Is it 35 feet from the street or right of way?
Right away. And 4 feet gate, see, and then, okay, the hardy board thing is, and then we're gonna change the height of the foundation to be 30 inch, max at 30 inches, is that correct? Cool, got it.
I move to approve with conditions the request for new construction of a single-family dwelling with a fence at 505 Dock Street, and to adopt the proposed findings of fact. Details are shown on the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement contained in the application, and supplemental materials and statements made at this meeting are part of this request unless otherwise noted. This motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including the finding of facts. The following conditions shall be applied to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in the staff report 1 through 16, plus the following. The east side fence shall be moved back to such that it will be 35 feet from the right-of-way. The gate to that fence will be reduced to 4 feet in height. The remaining gate will be 6 feet as stated. The driveway will be increased to run up to the back fence, and the trash pad will be removed as the trash will now be placed within the backyard. The foundation height will be changed to maximum amount of height of 30 feet, 30 inches. 30 inches. And the hardy plank will be corrected to be 7.5?
6 inch
7
reveal.
1/4 width.
Yeah. 6 inch reveal, but whatever, yeah.
7 1/4? Yes. Okay. The proposed request with conditions does comply with the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks, is compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic building in the historic district in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic district residential as a whole. Applicable design standards, 1.6 Secretary of the Interior standards, standards 3, 8, 9, and 10. 2.1 landscaping standards 3, 4, 5. 2.2 public right-of-way standards 1, 2, 4. 2.3 fences and wall standards 2, 3, 4, 8, and 9. 2.4 walkways, driveways, and off-street parking standards 1, 4, 5, 6, and 9. 3.9 utilities and energy retrofit standards 7. 4.2 new construction infill standards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. We now move to the last item on the agenda, 610 Dock Street, the installation of a new in-ground pool.
All right, this is it. The applicant for 610 Dock Street proposes to construct an 8-foot by 16-foot in-ground pool at the south end of their rear yard. Built circa 1870, the Fennel Croom House is a 2-story, 5-bay wide Italianate house. The front facade features a full-width, 1-story porch with square posts on a paneled wood columns and railings with turn-spindled balustrade. The central entrance is framed by stained glass transom and side lights. The first-story windows are 1/1 sash, while the second story features 2/2 sash windows at the outer bays and one 8/1 sash window at the central bay. On the east side, a bay window was added between 1910 and 1915, and the rear 2-story addition was added prior to 1974. The subject house is located on the south side of Dock Street between 6th and 7th Streets. The subject property is a contributing resource in the Historic District Residential. Revisions to all facades of the building and the site are subject to design review in this district. The applicant seeks to construct at the southern end of the rear yard an 8-foot by 16-foot in-ground pool that would stand 3 inches above grade. The interior color would be a medium gray, and the pool would have a continuous outer edge consisting of 12 inches by 1.5 inch deep Pennsylvania bluestone. The pool pump and equipment would be placed to the south of the existing rear yard shed. The design standards state that swimming pools are appropriate only in rear yards. Staff would like to enter the case summary in its entirety into the proceedings tonight. Thanks. Any
I would
questions?
just like to say that I live next door, but there's no reason why I need to recuse myself.
I don't see anything about fences. Did they mention anything about having a fence around that pool? Are they required, aren't they required to do it?
I don't know that as New Hanover County, but they don't have anything about a fence.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think they're required, but I don't want to speak on behalf of the county. I don't know that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't seem the applicant's here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
I think the backyard's fenced in.
They have an overall backyard fence, correct?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then, since the applicant is not here and we don't have anyone here for the evidentiary portion, it seems, other than Travis, who's not really with us.
Say a few words.
Commissioner deliberation.
Is there a site plan showing the pool on the site? Or
It's on page 3.
my battery died on my iPad, so I didn't.
The screen here shows the closest location
Did they provide a site plan with a dimension about where the pool is going? I mean, I hate to prove
yeah,
something.
there's one in the case summary on page 3, as Chris just mentioned.
Those types of drawings would be helpful for us to, have up on the screen too.
It's there, right there for you.
I was curious when I saw this, they want to see if they can run faster than the mosquitoes back to the house. I mean, I couldn't believe how far back this pool was from the house.
It's a large lot, yes.
Yeah. Have room.
It's not going to be a gunite pool or fiberglass. It's going to be a cinder block and epoxy. Is that what? I'm seeing.
They dig a hole and put a fiber, just like a big jacuzzi. They just dig a hole and put the thing in the ground.
Is that the project building materials I'm seeing?
I'm sorry, our
Well,
colleague
it's,
took this project in, so I'm
almost
just
at
trying
the
to look
last
at it
page.
myself and make sure I know that before I tell you the answer.
It looks like just an old block. I mean, I won't say old, but, you know, an old-fashioned construction. Neither is not a gunite. It's, you're going to build a block. And speaking of fences, that's a fence in the back the pool will be close to is big.
I'm sorry,
Maybe we could check to see if there was an a COA for that fence, because it looks about 10 or 12 feet tall, since we're on the subject of fences.
I think there's a grade change there, I'm not sure, but I mean, I can look into the other house's fence.
Well, as far as fencing though, isn't that a county code? That's not our purview. I mean, if the county wants it fenced, the county will tell them it has to be fenced for a pool.
Correct, the entire backyard is fenced in. It's just, I don't know if there's a requirement from the county in regards to like a safety fence on the pool or anything of that nature. But they have to apply by all county guidelines to get the permit to dig the pool, so that'll get sorted out with them.
The slate material going around the pool looks quite nice. I mean,
And my colleague just confirmed the pool will be concrete block with a concrete slab floor.
I just wanted to clarify, it seemed stated, I just haven't seen one constructed like that in a long time.
Okay, could we have a motion, please? Yes.
I move to approve with conditions the request for installation of an in-ground pool at 610 Dock Street and to adopt the proposed findings of fact. Details as shown on the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement contained in the application and supplemental materials and statements are made at this meeting are part of this request unless otherwise noted. Motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including the findings of fact. Following conditions shall be applied to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in the staff report 1 through 3. The proposed request with conditions does comply with the Wilmington design standards for historic districts and landmarks and is compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic building and the historic district in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic district residential as a whole. Applicable design standards 2.6 decks and swimming pools, standards 8, archaeology standards 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
second.
All in favor? Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. And I don't see anything on the agenda as far as items from commission or staff. So I make a motion to adjourn, and somebody better
Adjourn,
second.
amen.
Before we do, I know we're ready to go. I don't know
I don't
if
have
we
any
need
time
to set
to
up
do
a special
this.
meeting to talk about this congruency issue. We have been talking about it the entire time I've been on the commission, and whether we need a plan to approach city council, but the project that we saw tonight is but the first of many, maybe the second, because one that's been approved, but there's likely to be a building where the city market is. I mean, and I do remember for my time in the district, the 2020 plan, which is already passed, but where they didn't want a canyon along Water Street. And I don't know where that, what's happened to that, but Melissa, if you could guide us into what needs to be done and what action we need to take to approach city council to talk about this, because our hands are tied. We have no muscle in ruling on anything that.
I agree with you, Michael. I agree 100%, and I think it should even be further to size of deeds. I mean, that the size of lots that are being broken down into these small units. That's a congruence issue to me, too, and I know we have no jurisdiction on that, but to me, that's a congruity issue, too. Otherwise, the houses that Libby's building are so incongruous with that block.
We've asked for this through, Dawn was here, Ivy, I mean, it keeps coming up. We've asked for workshops about it, but something comes up like tonight, and then we hear what the rules and the law and the statutes are, and, then 4 months from now, another project will come up, and we have no muscle. And we may never be able to change it, but I don't think we've tried.
I agree.
And
started with
secondly,
the hotel on Second
the
Street.
fences, we've got to decide about fences.
Right, because we didn't approve of the hotel on Second Street, the height, and they overruled us because of that case law.
Right, well, it's, whether they move that across the street because the building's down, the city
I agree.
market, that certainly to slate something to fill up that whole footprint. And we have no muscle.
Doing anything when we can't do anything about it.
So the fence issue that Mr. Smith was talking about, that would be a change to our standards, which would have to go to council, but it's not like you would be asking them to create sub-districts or different districts with different standards, anything like that. That would just be addressing something that's completely missing from our standards as they are now.
But when we spoke about this 3 years ago, we were talking about going block by block and defining congruity. And one of the issues in the case law was we were relying on the dictionary definition of congruity. So the idea at that time was that we were going to go block by block and define what congruity meant, what were the parameters or the circumstances or the items that kept it congruous.
But the problem is that the state statute doesn't allow us to go block by block. It says district. So we would have to, in my opinion, petition city council to make different districts. It may only be this, it may be all the HDO or the HDR, but to split it up to maybe a transition district height-wise, something like that. But that would be, then when you look at it, that smaller piece would be that district. We can't just go and call it a block and say that counts as the district. That's what I'm trying to say. We would have to get city council to define a district in a smaller capacity than how broad it is right now, geographically.
You said that was your opinion. Is there any way you can check and see if there's some legal way that
I can bring it to my boss, sure, but
I mean, I'm just saying, is there any legality or legal way that we could be creative in approaching this?
I'll
other than
speak with
just
my
saying,
boss about it.
And I know that the word opinion is misunderstood by non-lawyers. A legal opinion is not just a casual, I think so.
Right.
It has a lot more than that. So when she says it's my opinion, my personal opinion, it doesn't have any weight.
And the research I've been doing, we're not the only state that is struggling with this. And so I think maybe it might help us to look into whether other states have found some way to address this.
Well, we have a planning director that's starting in July, is that correct? She may be able to give the planning department some assistance and some guidance on how she wishes to proceed.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation. I mean, we just have to remember legally we're balancing between private property rights and these zoning statutes and laws. And that's a balance that we have to take.
Right.
Melissa,
It's a little worrisome to create a wind tunnel on Water Street.
Melissa, we have buildings that are much higher than 6 stories, so could theoretically some developers sue the city because we've already got existing buildings that are even higher?
Just because there's a single building in the district that is higher than 6 stories doesn't mean that they have carte blanche to always put a 6-story building. You still can look at massing. You still can look at other factors, whether they take efforts like that Mr. Hipp took some efforts to sort of break up the massing
Right.
of the building. There are other factors that you can look at.
Okay.
All right.
Adjourned officially?
Have a motion to adjourn? Yeah, I guess we took the vote. Okay. You leave one